All right. We are three today. Let's see. Good evening, Tanya. I'm not going to reveal your geographical location, but it is the evening where Tanya is. Hi, Alexander. Alexander Mckay from the Marx, Engels, Lenin Institute is with us. Good morning. Or no, we're in the afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon to both of you. And thank you for the invitation.
Oh, thank you for accepting, because whenever we find somebody who both knows that sex is real and is a Marxist, we're like, oh my God, he's like a unicorn. So we want to snap him up, because it's been a long time in the wilderness, and I'm sure there's more of us. It's just people who are open with it, and so I really appreciate you coming on. And he didn't know me from any bad. I just dropped him I DM'd him on Twitter. I'm like, hey. Yeah.
Well, when there's an opportunity to discuss seriously, one should always take advantage of it.
I agree. And I wanted to say that one of the reasons why I'm really excited about this is because it's just because most of this stuff is just so unbelievably stupid. that you're like, you feel like the time I've wasted talking to people about how there's only males and females and you really can't transition and there's no such thing as a trans kid and you shouldn't, human vivisection is not a good idea.
Hmm.
So when you get an opportunity, excuse me, to look at it, ideologically, theoretically, you'd be like, okay, how did this happen? And that's why I guess I should explain the title of our episode is, and again, you have to have some fun with it. I used to think, especially after I got my PhD, that I had to, suppress my working class roots and be really prim and proper. But now I don't care anymore. The BS has broke me. I'm just like, we call it peaked in church and Turk talk, we call it peaked. So I'm just like, so with the gender stuff and the Russiagate stuff and all the stuff, all the BS, I'm just like, I just can't take it anymore. So we got to have some fun. So I called it Gender Borg, how the left was trans. And basically we're going to discuss a bit, we could, this could be like an 8-part series perhaps. But we're not going to talk. What we're not going to talk about is we're not going to talk about the birds and the bees. We're going to assume that people know that. We're not going to get in trying to convince people that nobody's both sexes or no sex or actually going from one to the other. We're not going to get into any of that. We're going to talk about basically looking at the left in general, how it is that practically every single, or maybe every single major institution or minor institution kind of just swallowed this gender ideology whole. And in particular, of the left, the Marxist left, or at least those who say they are, because that's always been, I can't decide who I'm more pissed at, the feminists or the Marxists, who I'm assuming they're pretending. I don't know. I'm assuming that no one can actually believe this stuff. I mean, I guess you could convince your thing of it, but anyway, that's so I wanted to do a topic on this for a long time. I realized I probably a mutual that Alexandra and I share. I think it was when there was a tweet of yours that said, "Okay, it's time again to clear the timeline of the postmodernists or something like that," and you shared. I think it was. Let me fast forward. I'm sorry for people who have epilepsy. Look away. It was, what was it? This article that I saw. Yeah, this one. And that's why I thought,
oh, yes.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, I need to chat this guy down and be like, hey, would you like to come on? And I'd love to get your take on that. So anyway, if you want to briefly introduce yourself, Alexander, and how you came to not be afraid to say that men aren't women and women aren't men, and that crazy that any kind of communist or Marxist would entertain these types of ideas.
Well, thank you. And I'll just start by introducing myself. My name's Alexander Mckay. I'm the editor of Marx, Engels, Lenin Institute, which is something which is now just over a year old. I set it up to encourage people to actually read the works of Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Mao, with the idea that the Western left is now dominated by people who don't read any of those. And today's topic of conversation is really a symptom of the fact that they don't and haven't for a long time in a serious way. So that's the purpose of setting up the Institute. It's the purpose of the live streams that I do. In terms of my own evolution on the subject, I mean, you showed a moment ago the pamphlet that I tweet out every month now, which is something as part that is part of a series of materials produced by the party I'm a member of, which is the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist, who are standing, I think, alone amongst all the supposedly Marxist parties in Britain, and actually publishing material that critiques what is called gender fluidity or gender ideology from the perspective of Marxism-Leninism. And this stems from a few years ago when, this is before I joined, a group of, shall we say, younger, ill-informed former comrades tried to advocate for the party's line to change on this, to embrace this nonsense, and they were defeated. And duly, I think most of them flounced out of the organization. And it produced a series of debates that became booklets, which are now very popular online. And I share those every month whenever I get new followers on Twitter or X or whatever it is that Elon's calling it today, because essentially it flushes people out. And it will, nothing produces more rage and incoherent madness from people than simply saying things like this. And in terms of my own evolution on the issue, it took me leaving the established left in Britain for me to actually take the issue seriously. 10 years ago, when this first started being raised by, to give credit where credit is due, feminist members of the National Education Union, or the National Union of Teachers as it was then, and others in the trade union movement, it was kind of ignored, like by most of the Marxist groups. They hadn't gone full gender Borg, as you put it, Tanya, yet, but they were ignoring it. They were pretending it wasn't an issue. And when feminists did try to raise it in my own union, at the time I was in the Civil Service Union, Public and Commercial Services, it's called, we just ignored it. I remember one woman tried to raise it at a meeting, and I said, okay, I'll make a note of that, and then didn't do anything with it because it was just regarded as something that was, not unimportant. And then it was only after I dropped out of the movement completely that I noticed that what had happened was that this had now gone everywhere, and it had been embraced by most of the Marxist groups, or the groups calling themselves Marxists. Or if they hadn't embraced it, then they'd undergone like a very damaging split, as most of their youth wings had broken off, because these youth wings were formed of students who'd been recruited in a very opportunistic fashion, as a lot of the supposedly Marxist groups do amongst students. They recruit anybody who's like 18 to 21 who will turn up and take a leaflet off them, and then they don't train them ideologically. They don't have them read anything. They as long as they'll turn out for the organization and spout the line, they'll pander to anything, any prejudice or piece of bourgeois ideology that they bring with them, which is why they all went down the trans rabbit hole. That's a big part of why. So when I sort of came back to politics, must be about 2020, 2021, during the whole COVID period, is when I started doing the podcast. I realized that this had gone everywhere, so I'd better actually start taking it seriously and actually start reading about it. And then as soon as I started reading some of the justifications as to why Marxism should support so-called trans rights, I came to the conclusion that this is not only shallow and ridiculous, but it's like, it's actively anti-Marxist. It's anti-materialist. It's completely idealist to the point of being religious, basically. It's the idea that you can overcome the material whilst remaining on planet Earth. Like, it's an argument for, it's an argument that basically, like, the material world doesn't matter at all, because it's what purely goes on inside people's heads that matters. And there's that's a completely idealist argument. Like, you can't get more anti-materialist than that. And yet they'd all embraced it. And again, I think mostly for opportunistic and very cowardly reasons. A lot of these organizations were actually making what they called materialist critiques of identity politics 10 years ago. They were still doing them. But the turn after, I think the turn was after 2015 to 16. I think a lot of this stuff really escalated then. And so it brought me to the point where I discovered that not only was it necessary to understand this myself, but it was also necessary to publicly critique it and to be prepared to argue with people, if they were prepared to argue at all about it, because letting people labor under these delusions, if you're prepared to believe that a man can become a woman because of the thoughts that are in his head, then you'll believe anything.
Yeah.
And especially if you're claiming to be a Marxist and you'll believe that a man can become a woman just because he wakes up one day feeling that way, then you believe there's no limit to what you'll buy. You might even buy the argument that there's no such thing as class anymore. You might as well, because it's no less ridiculous, because this was the argument they made when I was an undergraduate 20 years ago. They said all the political science lecturers said, class in Britain and America, it's just not a thing anymore. We've overcome it. Well, okay, well, if you can buy that a man can become a woman, you can buy that class is no longer a thing, and therefore you can negate Marxism entirely. It's all idealism, and it's the retreat from, I believe, and we'll probably come to this later, that the root of it lies in a retreat from class politics, a retreat from being organizations of or the working class or having any relation to the working class whatsoever. And once you retreat into a world which is purely dominated by academics, civil servants, so-called intellectuals, what I would call bourgeois intellectuals, then you're just in the realm of idealism, because you're no longer connected with the class struggle. You're no longer connected with the working class at all. And you're now just pandering endlessly to this new constituency of yours, which is essentially, I would call them like various hysterical petty bourgeois types. And so that's what brings me to the point that I am today.
Thank you for that. I think I would probably say this. I'll just before I start going with my 2 cents, Tanya, do you want to add something about how it is you came to realize that feminists would tell you that if you don't believe that trans women are women, that you're not a real feminist, and if you don't stand up for trans rights, you're not a real Marxist? And then you were like, what?
Yeah, I didn't find that out for quite a while. I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that everybody was pretending it. Do you know? The first time I heard about it in Vancouver, there was Vancouver Rape Relief, which is a women's shelter, and there's been a man trying to, a man in a dress trying to be a counselor there since the 90s, and so the women there have been fighting him all the way up to the Supreme Court, who ruled in their favor. No, he can't, get a job at Vancouver Rape Relief. He's a man. And, I was listening to the radio to the CBC one day, and the host, Anna Maria Tremonti of this radio show, was going to be interviewing, the woman who ran Vancouver Rape Relief, Hilla Kerner. She's a wonderful feminist, and someone else commenting on it. And I thought, oh, well, this is going to be no problem. Like, duh, what else could he say besides, no, of course a man. Like, what's this going to be about? And I was shocked. I was shocked to hear that Anna Maria Tremonti, this, fancy TV host that I'd grown up with, was giving Hilla Kerner a hard time because she didn't want to say, that men can pretend to be women and go work in a rape shelter. So yeah, after that, it was all downhill. When did I learn that people were playing along? Almost immediately. I couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. It took a long time to understand the depths of how far it had gone. It took me a really long time I was turfed right away, but it took me a long time to realize that everybody, we lost friends, we lost.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. It was a niche.
Yeah. No, I have a niece who I was really close with who won't talk to me at all because I won't go along with the whole. I mean, she's so into the trans stuff, but it's like whatever. I really brief. I'll try to be brief because I want to get as much of Alexander as possible. Not that I don't want to hear what you have to say, Tanya, but I know I can get you back on the swing.
Not necessarily.
I'm like, we have a man Marxist who doesn't stand for any of the gender stuff. He's this unique unicorn. We have to.
Yeah, let him talk.
We just want to enjoy.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So very quickly, my first thing is I just thought, oh, this is right wing culture war stuff. I was in Holland at the time when I first heard about it. I think it was in the 2016 election or something. And there was some state in particularly the South, there was a bathroom thing was coming on about, and the way I heard on the news, it made it seem like there was just like this avalanche of trans people, transsexuals who were trying to use the bathroom in somewhere in like West Virginia. And I was thinking because I didn't know how it had exploded. I didn't know any of the stuff that Jennifer Bullock has covered about the laws and all this thing. And I was like, well, how many transsexuals could there be in West Virginia trying to use the bathroom at Walmart? It just seemed like, not that I thought it was cool for a guy to do that, but I was like, how it just seemed like this huge issue. And then fast forward when I shifted from Holland to Oxford for a research fellowship, I saw things starting to happen. I would see things and I'd be getting all these emails about, please to be, for the DEI officer about putting pronouns in your bio. And I was like, seems weird to me. And I started to see flyers and whatnot. But when I was at Oxford, there was no teaching. It was a purely research position. So I was like writing or in India all the time. So I just wasn't picking up on it. And then when COVID happened, there was a few things I started to realize from people I knew what was going on in the Labor Party with women. And I was like, this can't be, this just seems crazy what's going on here. And I literally spent like maybe a weekend, maybe 8 hours just looking into this stuff. And I was like, what? And I was instantly piqued. I was like, this is crazy. And the cancellation. So you have people like Kathleen Stock, who was not, she's trying to be nice. She's trying to be very rational, analytical, just basically saying, okay, well, this is, trans women are women's a fiction, women, and then, people who probably follow, that situation's got run out on the rail. People getting kicked out of the Labor Department, this whole thing about sexual apartheid, that if you don't allow trans people into your dating group, you're somehow like an apartheid person, like someone who wanted to have colored only bathrooms or something. And then the men, especially, well, the feminists are one thing, but the guys who would be like, not taken seriously. Let me put the foot in that because they should be. I've been waiting a long time for this. Ben Burgess and this is Revolution, TIR. They have a crew. And there were some people there. Oh, what's his name? Anyway, some of the crew there. And they were having this thing, what could get you, this world of peace, blah, blah, blah. And I tried to get into conversation with them and they weren't taking it seriously. They're being very patronizing, and really, and to the point where I was like, you can't honestly believe this. And trying to explain to me, and they're talking about, well, cis this and trans this. I'm just like, what? And I tried to put them down. Like, can you, I tried to be like, okay, let's get analytical about this because Ben Burgess is a quote unquote analytical philosopher. It's all about give them an argument. I'm like, okay, I just basically said, give me an empirical, objective definition of gender that I could use to apply to people so I can categorize what gender they're in or something like that. Or how many, and they would not do it. They're like, oh, that's fate. You're trying to, like, I'm trying to capture them or something. And just being so ridiculous and just speaking like they swallowed this whole. And I was just like, and their whole MO is about critiquing the left from the left. But not when it comes to any of this stuff. There are trans women or women. Ben Burgess went on the Joe Rogan show saying that trans women should be able to compete in women's sports. I just trans rights, and I'm just like, okay, brother. And I was like, I don't understand. And just really briefly before we get back to some other people, here's another one. Giannis Varoufakis. He will trans women or women you. This dude. And it's hard for me because again, he has his charisma, but like I'm like, A2 Giannis, really?
Yeah. What a disappointment. What a disappointment from him too.
I don't know.
And he has a teenage daughter. He wrote a book. We know he's
a surprise to you, Alexander, when Giannis fell to the gender board or pretends to. I mean, I can't really believe he actually believes this, but
I don't think he does, because I have some very negative opinions about the man's politics, but I don't think he's stupid. I think that he is running a movement, DM25, which is based on middle-class radicals across Europe. And because these middle-class radicals are completely beholden to this, therefore Varoufakis is beholden to it. Because if he's not, then these people will all make merry hell in his party and will all walk out just the same way they do everywhere else. So he's pandering, and it doesn't speak well of the man's politics. I mean, he calls himself an erratic Marxist. I think the erratic is the least of his problems. I mean, he's abandoned Marxism entirely. I mean, I could go on at length about his theories on techno-feudalism, which are also, I think, ridiculous. But once you've decided that you're going to opt out of like key elements of the Marxist analysis, if you're going to turn your back on Leninism, if you're going to turn your back on some basic things there, then you're on basically a sleigh ride down a hill of idealism, which is what he's on. And it ends.
I don't get that. They just will not, and they make it like it's your problem, like you're some sort of meanie that.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Varoufakis, and I think the thing with old brother Ben as well, is that he knows he's talking rubbish, Ben Burgess, because I don't think he's a stupid man, even if he does spend a lot of time ripping off John Rawls. But he's not stupid. He knows the things he's saying are ridiculous. And this is why he can't debate anybody about it. Same with Varoufakis. It's the reason why all of these people, when you try to actually say to them, well, what does any of this mean? Scream and get hysterical. Or they make like long videos just with each other talking in circles. Because you can't explain it. Because you can't explain it and retain, and especially if you're a Marxist of some description, you can't explain that and claim to stay in the realm of the material. And so the answer is always hysteria, and the answer is always accusations and you're a TERF or whatever, or whatever the latest insult is.
Racist.
Yeah.
My favorite is when they get mad and ask you about Black women. I'm like, what? Like, what about Black women? I'm like, well, Black women are women. It's like, it's just like, and then I'm like, okay. But no, I mean, just to paraphrase what you're saying, and as you try to get into the conversation, because you think, especially when it's like Ben Burgess, and if you want, somewhere I have this fantastic exchange I had with some of this Revolution crew. I saved it because I just, I was just like, after like 2 days, I thought this is pointless. They're just bad faith. They won't deal with the issues because, like you said, these things can't withstand any scrutiny. And I'm like, so this idea that, what do you want me to believe, that a woman or, and of course the same would go for men, but this stuff affects women differently than men because of the obvious differences of men and women. It's like, so what, we're an idea? And some guy said, how would he know the idea in his head is what makes him a woman? And this idea that if you put a dress on and it gives you a good feeling, somehow you must be a woman. Or that a woman is a dickless man. Or a woman is a hormone level, or this spectrum stuff, which is just crazy. Although one silver lining is I have learned a lot about biology, evolutionary biology, having to deal with these people and intersex disorders, which is another thing. But yeah, I mean, it's just, or the people who want to be like, oh, you need to read this. So what kind of Marxist are you? And I really think part of it is what you said, is that these people, especially when there's, they can't generate excitement for their vision or their politics. They need to recruit somehow. So I think it becomes like these support groups. So these groups just to have the numbers in the seats or the likes on the tweets or the buyers of the books or whatever. Again, like this pandering that just seems to be really bizarre to me, and that's why I do agree that they won't touch it, because I'm waiting for someone to please explain to me like the literal passages that you're going to take from Marx, Engels, Lenin, whoever, that backs up any of this gender bullshit, please. But it becomes that leftism has become for leftists. So whatever their predilection is, we're supposed to affirm it, or we're bad leftists or something. I think I'm just reiterating it. But I want to also, just while we're on this topic of if these people are, what to make of these quote unquote leftists, Marxists who do this. Let me share my screen. And I think I shared this with you. Daniel Tutt or somebody, or someone did the meme, the Jeopardy meme. Let me see if I can share my screen. I got so many things going on here, people. If you want to talk a bit while I do this, I'll just be busy for like 30 seconds. So Tanya or Alexander want to comment on any of this?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Alexander, does it do you have you felt stressed seeing all of the sort of commentary about from right, center to right kind of pundits about how this is neo-Marxism, or do you know what I mean? Like the leftists kind of gave it to them, and they took the football and they're running with it. And it's like everybody's having a really great time, except for women, of course.
Well, it's not surprising because this has happened many times before, which is where the Western left in particular completely fails and falls down and fails to address things properly. They leave space open for right-wingers to come in and say, you see all this stuff happening over there, that's Marxism. And this is the role I think that the Western left has played probably since the 50s in many respects, which is that they have been the partners of the bourgeois right-wingers, which is that because they moved away from class struggle slowly at first, but then with increasing speed after probably the early 1970s, they moved into a realm of the purely personal and the individual and the idealistic. And once they'd done that, again, as I said earlier, the move to supporting things like gender ideology was a horribly contorted but logical next step. And so when the right gets up and says this is neo-Marxism, well, they can find 20 weirdos online who will say it is. So that's why I say they're the useful idiots of like the out and out reactionaries, because they'll provide them with the nightmare of communism, which they're serving up to people as a sort of a scarecrow. Well, you can find many online scarecrows who will do it for you. So yeah, they are the useful partners of these right wingers, and it's therefore not a surprise that the two of them spend so much time attacking each other, because they feed off each other. Because if you're in the realm of the organized left in Britain or the United States or Canada or most of Western Europe, you are, and you, especially if you're extremely online, you are locked in a perpetual good versus evil battle in your own head with what you imagine are the forces of fascism, which actually aren't. They're just another form of liberalism. Most of these right wingers are just liberals, but this is the reason why they are so entrenched and so invested in this, is because they can go around all day arguing with these like nightmarish, supposedly like fascist figures online, and they imagine themselves in this heroic narrative where they're defending an oppressed minority. But in actual fact, the whole thing's a simulation. Really, the whole thing's a simulation of struggle. They gave up on real struggle decades ago, so they have substituted this for it. And the right-wingers are more than happy to play along with them, because they will get far more out of this in the end than the leftists will.
Yeah, and it's the thing when people don't want to hear that, how people have really fallen down on the job being kind of a steward of the tradition, or the kind of I don't know what you want to call it. Because a lot of people get upset. I know, like Jane Claire Jones and some other people, some of the feminists in Mckay, when people on the right be like, well, and I've had this sometimes too when we're having conversations with it, and inevitably someone will pop up and be like, well, the feminists are getting what they deserve. They are the ones like that. The feminists are as such responsible for all the trans stuff. And without getting into the autogynephilia of it all, I say, okay, we have to be honest. If you look at Judith Butler, and even with the materialist ones, you can look at Sheila Smith Firestone, it's like, there is stuff there that you can find about wanting to transcend the material, the body. Sheila Smith Firestone was like, as long as women are burdened with this barbarity of childbirth, we will not get rid of patriarchy. Well, that fits hand in glove with transhumanism, transgenderism, all this stuff. And of course, Judith Butler is an obvious one. So I think we have to be honest about the traditions that we belong in tangentially or actually. At some point, there's going to have to be a reckoning about how this happened, because people are so quick to point the finger. And like my mom would say, there's three fingers pointing back to you, So it didn't just happen that women's studies became gender studies. It didn't just happen that all of a sudden people just believe there's magic prefixes that if uttered can transcend turn a man woman or a woman man or any of this stuff. And so to look at um, again what it says, and you brought this up quite already about what about Western Marxism and the shifts in maybe the 60s, the new left ones, the post 69, all the influx of French theory and all that. That kind of to kind of have a reckoning of how that happened. But yeah, I think it's both. But I think it's important also on the feminist side, and people don't want to do that. It's like when people want to, when it's Jordan Peterson or Rufo or whoever, or is it Lindsay or Jack Lindsay, James Lindsay, and the other guy who has a long name that starts with a D that got kicked out of Portland State for not going along with the woke stuff. So when they say that, you're quite right, because they can point to, well, look at all these bios with the Marxist unicorn or the like they have the trans symbol with the sickle and the Soviet Union sign, or all the stuff where they have the gender, but the feminists who are also going along with that. So I think that we have to get that. Who knows what? Hopefully, it won't be totally memory hole. Maybe if the fever breaks, and the insurance companies, especially in the States, won't sign off on the quote unquote gender care, maybe everyone will start to pretend like they never went along with it. I don't know. But in terms of the left, or about the cultural Marxism people having a point, I want to share this. So this is Daniel Tutt. We're also going to see the first 4 minutes of his opening salvo when he went on How's Aldin show. So he tweeted this: something you can describe in detail that almost everyone agrees with until you say its name. And says, what is Marxism? And I write, what is a turf also fits. And then Conrad was not happy about this. So he was gonna let me know what's what. So Conrad Hamilton, who is a Marxist studying labor value and something somewhere, he said, to be honest, that actually gets worse the more details you provide. You talk about turf. Even something basic like keeping trans women out of women's changing rooms would beget either a dystopian invasion of privacy or just discriminating not against trans women, but against those who aren't femme. So I'll give you my response, and then I'd like to hear your guys' response. So I'm like, blah, blah, blah. This isn't a gender or queer studies class. Women's rooms are for females. Men who live with women, for whatever reason, can use the men's room or locate a single stall facility. So what do you think about Conrad's shaking his finger at me, associating, saying that turf could also be an answer to that Jeopardy question, or the question to the Jeopardy answer?
Well, I would say that he's talking a load of garbage, but he's given himself away there at the end when he's saying it wouldn't just be against men pretending to be women, but those against women that aren't presenting as feminine enough, which is just transparent nonsense. Given that the whole trans thing with regard to like men pretending to be women is often taken up by men who have a vision of what being a woman is, which is filtered almost exclusively through pornography, it seems, and filtered through like a vision of a woman which is like completely divorced from how women actually are. It's them that are on the side of presenting a vision of what a woman is that is hypersexualized, pornographied, and filtered through all the most garbage elements of modern culture. So his argument is nonsense, basically. Yeah. Again, they'll just grasp at anything and throw it into the mix to try and justify themselves.
Well, also, I always wonder, how is it that Conrad knows so much about what goes on in the women's room? I've only a couple times, because this is, I have been able to avoid so-called gender neutral bathrooms. There's only a couple times that I've had an issue. So when I was out and about before I was settled, every once in a while I'd be in a bathroom and some drunk, if you're at a bar or disco, some drunk guy gets into the wrong bathroom and you're like, okay, But I have never, like, does he think like, like butch lesbians are getting kicked out of the bathroom, but if you're not feminine, you don't get in? It's so
They
ridiculous.
say that. They pretend.
Yeah. But I do actually, I had a couple of very, and this is how this is how they describe themselves. Don't get mad at me. Butch dyke friends back in the state when I was going to college. That's how they identify themselves. And they would choose to avoid group bathrooms. So they would prefer a single stall because they just didn't want to have the looks or the whatever. That was on them. But did anybody like think they were a man and try to get them out? No. So this idea that we can't clock with like 99% accuracy who's male or female is really silly. But and again, what Conrad does is he really wants to center the quote unquote trans man or trans woman, which is a man who wants to be recognized as a woman. And then to present it as somehow liberating and progressive for women. So I'll quickly go down because I just want to bring him up because this isn't limited to Conrad. This is just the kind of stuff you get from quote unquote Marxists. Yeah. Leftist Marxists. So there's more. And he says, it's a weird hill to die on anyway. I don't think trans women are the obstacle to women's emancipation or even affect it negatively on balance. Is that true, Conrad? So then I asked him, how is pretending porn addled or confused men or women liberating for women? If men can identify as women, that is the negation of women's rights, which requires the exclusion of men and the protection of our sex-based boundaries. I call them numpty because, like I said, I peaked. And I used to not talk like this online. This is how I talk to these woke bros now. Your contempt for women is clear. Maybe stop insulting everybody's intelligence. This is clearly a men's sexual rights thing. And I'll just quickly get his last one in here. And then he's trying to educate me more. In many cases, the actual implementation of these innocent sounding ideas, women's spaces for women, yay, would be nothing short of fascist, requiring for starters the stripping away of the ability to change your sex on identification many nations have long provided. Oh, Jesus, Marx wept. So I say, sorry, I don't speak cult of the female penis and male vagina. Trans women are men, have nothing to do with women, and need to stay out of our spaces, sports, and language. Simple as that. Yeah, and I just shared this because this is representative of what a Marxist who's focusing on labor value or value theory will tell us women about our rights, our existence, who's a woman, who's not a woman. So entitled. I'm like, I just don't even know what to make of this. But yeah.
Well, I wouldn't like to see his research on the labor theory of value if he's unable to discern material reality. How's he going to do on everything else, Or is it just on the material reality of biological sex that he has difficulty? Because that's a rather strange distinction to make. And I bet he wouldn't be making those distinctions if his research is any good on like historical studies of like how the labor theory of value is valid. But again, like on this, again, it's like even if they're like doing material analysis in other areas of research, they'll completely discard it and become an idealist on this. And on other things as well, but mostly this, which means that essentially everything else they say is also suspect, because if you're willing to go down this rabbit hole, then again, what else will you actually indulge in? How quickly will you abandon a supposedly Marxist position when some students complain at you out of fear that you'll be kicked out of the reading circle that you're in, if you do read?
Yeah. Well, and this was, I think, a year ago I thought of this, because my PhD's in geography, and I've spent my actual research is looking at the establishment of real estate markets in India. So I don't want to get too off track, but there's a lot of diversity and tenure and property relations. And when you go from that to turn them into real estate, there's a lot of interesting politics and drama and violence that goes on. So I'm just saying that for the fact that my PhD is in human geography, focused on urban geography. So I'm not a philosopher or anything like that. So this is self-taught. But I was pretty happy when I came up with this. And no one has ever, no woke bro or transmate or anybody has been able to give me an answer besides I'm mean or I must be filled with hate or they feel sorry for my family, something like that. And I like this one, transgender mindbender. And I'm just going to read it out loud for people who may just be listening to audio. At what point or measure of adding or subtracting something from a man does he transition into a woman? And the reason why I like this is because it will it's a hidden way of getting them to define what a woman is. Yeah. So if they're going to say at what point, so is it whether you have boobs or not? Is it how you dress? Is it how you feel? But no one, and I ask, especially when people like Conrad, I didn't get a chance to ask him because I was just, with Israel, Palestine and all the stuff going on in the politically in other places. I just, it's got a bit on the back burner. But I wouldn't have asked this because none of these guys will ever give me a straight answer to this. Because if they do, the pronouns will come, I think, or they're out. They can't kind of, they can't kind of schmooze their way out of it. But no one has given me an answer yet, so that's unfortunate. But I really want to get my favorites out here, and then I want to look at the 5 minutes and 4.5 minutes of Daniel Tutt's opening salvo when he went to talk to Hazal Din. But this is another one that was, although this wasn't as surprising as Yanis Varoufakis. I know that Tanya and Alexander know Cornel West, but for the people watching this who may not know, Cornel West is a very well-known public intellectual. If you go to anyone who's gone to college, especially graduate school or above, he's very well known. He's charismatic, and he wrote Race Matters and Democracy Matters, and he's kind of has this kind of this preacher teacher kind of cool vibe to him. Anyway, he has what I like to call the type 5, which is not a quit, because if you're a comedian or a whoever or a musician, you create your stuff, you get your greatest hits, you do the same stuff all the time. So he gets asked to talk in a lot of places, and if you've ever seen Cornel West talk, he's going to mention like all the predecessors. So Rabbi Herschel, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, he has a list of well-known freedom fighters, also on music, Coltrane, all this. He's going to mention that. And at some point he'll go into, a such and such baby is just as invaluable as this baby. And we're not going to lose sight of our gay brothers and sisters catching hell, or our female sisters catching hell, or the whoever. And then, of course, about 5 years ago, he added trans. So our trans brothers who are catching hell from the right and who want to deny them their existence or whatever. So I was like, okay, here's another one. I'm like, really? But so I made this meme, and oh my God, it came for me. It's kind of funny. So this was before he left his Green Party. The Green Party is also totally captured by the Assembly Board. I don't think Jill Stein believes it, but there's people in her party who really evangelize this stuff. So I'll read out this meme in case people are listening and not watching. So it's a picture of Cornel West, and I have it, trans inclusion matters. And this is Cornel West talking, a pope. I used to ask, what kind of human are you going to choose to be in the short move from your mama's womb to tomb? That's what you used to say all the time. And so I changed it now I ask what kind of gender you're going to choose to be in the short move from your birthing person's bonus hole to tomb.
Yeah.
Well, I'd also ask, out of Cornel West's, what is it, 5 marriages? How many of those were to a man pretending to be a woman? So it seems to me that Cornel West knows what a woman is. He's married at least 4 of them. So it seems he's pretty clear on the subject when it comes to his own personal relations. So that should probably be put to him. Incidentally, he's still running for president because that was a campaign that went a long way, very, very, very fast.
He's still I think I sent you this. You still get this, and it's so cringe. I can't even take it anymore. It's again, these people, when you used to hear them once a year or once every 2 years, it was great. But now that you hear them all the time, they send out the messages to the love warriors, and I just can't get into that. But anyway, another one I sent to this, and we kept on talking about this stuff, is Laverne Cox is my sister. Rachel Dolezal is confused. And oh my God, Professor Zenkus, who was really trying to get on his campaign committee. Oh my God, I was a racist. And also, like, what is this? A white woman thinking she can tell Dr. West, blah, 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 and all this stuff. I go, look, I dig the man. I have the Cornell West Reader on my bookshelf. I saw him talk when I was a sophomore in college at Oregon State University when he was on the Race Matters tour. I didn't do this. He did this. So, so I'm sorry. I don't want to cancel the man, but I want to be like, why are you lying to my effing face about this bullshit? And if it didn't matter, fine. But when you have kids getting stuff locked off, you have, men and women's prisons, you got people getting kicked out of organizations for just saying basic facts. And this guy's like, oh, our trans brothers and sisters are catching hell. We have to stand up for them. I'm like, please. Sorry for the rant.
Well, it also speaks to the failure of his presidential campaign, because the fact that he does all this stuff about the trans stuff is like, and puts it in his, what I will call his act, like you were saying, he has his lines which he goes back to over and over again. Well, when he started his presidential campaign, it was like on a much more radical basis, and then at each turn, like, it became less radical and less radical, because basically he was getting pressure, I think, from like his academic colleagues to tone it down and to make sure that his campaign couldn't threaten Biden. Well, never mind about that anymore. But it all comes back to the same thing, which is that in those circles, this has become like a catechism to be repeated. We respect the following rights. We respect the struggles of, etc., etc., etc. None of it has any real meaning other than it's just something that's repeated endlessly. It's like the only meaning it has is that they essentially find another reason to cancel each other in the eternal backbiting world that is U.S. academia. But like, I don't think Cornel West believes in any of that for a second. I think that this is just what his audience demands. And just the same way as part of his social circle demanded that he train wreck his own presidential campaign, very successfully, I might add, they demand this of him, and he provides it to them. So he's not any kind of leader. He's a panderer, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that the transition from politics or from academia to and being on, and to his credit, he would put his body on the line. So him and Chris Hedges in particular show up in a lot of places when it's to protest, like Julian Assange situation and other things. So he won't join the protest, but he goes there to kind of get a boost. So he goes there. He says he has his 5, 10, 15, 30-minute version. My favorite one is when he brings in E.B. Du Bois. Those 3 questions. And anyway, that's a good speech. And so he gives them a boost, and then he goes back to doing whatever he was doing. So the Kenya campaign has just been, but he's still doing it. They're still asking our local warriors to participate and to donate. I mean, I would not donate to this campaign, but who am I to tell you what money? And what I want to do is another great article. In addition to I have a slideshow. I have a promo that I'm going to play again at the end, and it goes through also the pamphlet that Alexander shares quite a bit. But there was Christian Parenti, who was Michael Parenti's son. I only mention that. Usually, I don't mention people's fathers, but in our circle, Michael Parenti is usually known and fairly well regarded. He wrote, Christian Parenti wrote a review article in Catalyst Journal last year, I think, and he reviewed 6 books about wokeness that had come out, I think, in academic presses, 3 from people who say they're left and from people who say they're right. And it's a really great article. I'm not going to go over all of it. He does list out what he thinks are the 6 aspects of woke. A lot of it is stuff that we've been going over today that Alexander has said, made similar arguments, just not using the same exact terminology or same words. But if people would like to read in addition to hear it. But there is one example that he gives that I think Daniel Tutt, who would say he's a Marxist, who's fighting for the social, to attain socialism and all of this, is also big into critical theory. So somehow he also tries to pair that with, he doesn't want to cut anything out. So he wants everybody to get along. He wants the Marxism to get along with the Nietzscheism, to get along with the Duluth, to get along with the gender ideology. He wants everybody to get along. It's how I kind of take it. So if I could find this, okay. Well, basically, I thought I had it marked. Sorry. Maybe I don't. But basically, he makes a point. I don't want to be rambling on here. People can find that later. Prendy makes the point that people get locked inside this, and they become so afraid of saying the wrong thing or not signaling the right things. But for somehow, since it's kind of maybe like a Stockholm syndrome, they don't realize how unfree this thing they would say is about freedom, is about inclusion, is about diversity, how unfree it's actually, and how claustrophobic, how kind of authoritarian it's made these spaces. And when he makes that argument, I immediately thought of Daniel Tutt. And if you allow me, I'll just play the first 4 or 5 minutes of his talk, and I'll set us up a bit. I'm assuming a lot of the audience is familiar with Hazelden, and he's the infrared. I think that's his stream.
Yeah.
And he also is one of the founding members of the thing that launched a few days ago, American Communist Party, or Communist Front or something. And he's people have their issues with him, but what I will say is he's no idiot. He knows I think he's a very good debater, and he seems to know the humble. Anyway, he made an overture to Daniel because Daniel was trashing the mega communism. That's what he was like. That's what he was. Every once in a while, Daniel will issue a tweet on mega communism to let it be clear that he's not associated with any of that. That's not what Marxism is. He knows what Marxism and socialism are, and they're not anything to do with that. And so these guys have a lot of followers, so they came after a bit Daniel, and Haas apparently offered and invited him to come on his show and have a discussion about these things. And Daniel, as we'll see, after some careful reflection, decided that he would go on. But this is the first part of that, just for some background, and hopefully it works. Oh, sorry. I forgot to share my screen, so sorry about that.
Perils of live streaming.
Yeah, I'm always like, wait a minute, I can hear it, but I can't see it. Okay, so I do better if I talk myself through it. So I'm going to go share screen. Click on share screen. Daniel Tutt. There we go. Okay, so this should work.
Important that I give a sense of impact. First of all, Ramadan Mubarak, if you are observing the holy month. Thank you for having me. I'm actually looking forward to this exchange. I think it's important that I give a sense of an explanation as to why I'm here, given that there's been several people on the left that have called for me to be canceled because I'm here. They find your movement to be fascist and to be red-brownist. For them, they have an issue of not platforming reactionaries. And based on my study of your movement, on your work, people have been sharing a lot of information with me about you and infrared. What I noticed is that everything you do seems to be out in the open, unlike, for example, the conservative but quasi-socialist magazine Compact. Infrared seems to be an evolving platform with new ideas and strategies constantly being adopted. So, after researching all of that and consulting with comrades and people I trust, I've decided to engage you because I think you are communists. And I am doing so on the basis that we do have theoretical disagreements. Now, I will admit that I think a lot of what you propose is problematic in terms of your theoretical understanding of Marxist politics. Specifically, I'm concerned with a combination of Dugin's right-wing, sort of mystical Heideggerian nationalism with Marxism. This is not convincing to me, and I find it to be dangerous. But I also find that Heidegger's thought more generally is problematic for Marx. And for Marx and Engels, I don't see that linkage. This is something we can explore tonight. But why am I here? This started because I shared a tweet from your interview with Dugin in Russia, and I noticed a few things about your followers that struck me. You have become a sort of what we might call in psychoanalytic theory a father of the horde to a bunch of disaffected young people. Of course, I think, Haz, you bring this upon yourself by calling yourself a warlord. And this is interesting to me, I think, because based on my research, you probably were inspired by French theory and Deleuze and Guattari's notion of the war machine. But perhaps we can talk about that. But what really worried me in my interaction with the mega communists online was that many of them showed signs of some pretty regressive behavior. Okay, many of them peddled in some very retrograde culture war nonsense, and this involved even inciting violence to LGBTQ people. So I'm here because I think our differences are real and noticeable. We are both Marxists. I typically will not accept an invitation to engage anti-trans people that hide behind dark money like Compact. But I'm here because I understand that on the left in America, we're in a total mess. The fact you have created a platform based on the unity of opposites, MAGA and communism, is not lost on me. But when infrared followers adopt anti-LGBTQ politics, you've essentially adopted what I consider to be a hyper anti-politics. What is anti-politics? Anti-politics is the acceleration of bourgeois culture war polemics to the total abandonment of substantive proletarian politics. When anyone aggressively persecutes LGBTQ leftists, you all look like Republicans to me, not necessarily fascists. No, you look like standard bourgeois Republican culture warriors. Communists do not fan the flames of a pernicious and opportunistic culture war that can lead to dangerous outcomes. To do so is unrefined. It is not only bigoted, it is worse than that. It is anathema to Marxism completely. Let me share a personal story to highlight what I mean. Right after I agreed to come onto your stream, a comrade of mine discovered a meme that one of the mega communists put out during Pride Month. It was a meme that advocated that gays be exterminated, and it referenced Maxim Gorky, the great Marxist figure. My comrade called me in tears, saying that this made him fear for his life. He also happens to be gay. His partner and him live in the rural South, and they both cried about this. So this shit has real consequences outside of the simulated online.
So I'd like to let you comment on, and you should watch this. It's really good. And I will say that I don't know, for those of you who haven't, has really totally disarmed him. He was calm. He was, I think that Daniel was expecting like a fight. But it was kind of like a masterclass in disarming a very kind of, maybe hostile debate partner or something. But this kind of goes on from here, gives you an idea. I want to get your take, Alexander, and then I'll give you my assessment of what to make of this opening statement of Daniel.
Well, I first of all, I was very entertained by the idea that people were reduced to tears by a meme. Because if you have a meltdown because of a meme, how do you exist in the real world? So it's like, I'm not sure whether that's true, whether he made that up, or whether somebody who sent that to him made it up. But just on the substance of what he's saying, he's making the claim that those who critique gender ideology are engaging in a culture war. So he seems to be making the claim that this is a distraction from Marxist analysis. This is a claim that a lot of them are making now, and it represents a certain retreat for them, because a few years ago they were all in on, trans liberation now, basically. They were all screaming it. Now this is going wrong, and you've had a series of reverses for them, including like the Cass Review in Britain and various other things. And this has been exposed to the wider public now. Now they have to retreat. So now it's like, oh, well, you're engaging in a distraction by discussing this. And it's nothing to do with Marxist politics. Well, the risk of being crude, I would say, well, you made it part of that. You made this discussion necessary. People like you, Mr. Tutt, and others who insisted that this had to be part of the Marxist conversation. You made it necessary to actually critique this from a Marxist-Leninist point of view, which is what a lot of us have been trying to do over the last few years. So they made this a necessity. And then when people said, okay, well, let's discuss it, now they run away from it because he knows he can't defend the position. So now notice how also he's throwing in the L, the G, and the B as well, which is what they always try and do. It's about LGBTQ plus various other letters of the alphabet. Where I know a few people who both gay men and lesbians who would reject being lumped in with the T completely because it's a different struggle that those people went through. Yeah, but he's doing it deliberately to try and associate the gender ideology with previous more positive movements to secure equality under the law for homosexuals and lesbians. So it's a very slimy, tricky position that he's adopting here, because he's clearly not prepared to go on there and have the argument with Has about, trans rights now and defend gender ideology. He's trying to pretend that Marxists shouldn't be concerned with this question at all, which is nonsense, because Marxism is the ruthless critique of all that exists, and unfortunately, this exists and has become forced into many Marxist organizations and trade unions, by the way, and it very much has a home in the trade union bureaucracies. So it is necessary to critique it because it's a piece of bourgeois ideology that has been forced into Marxism by people like Mr. Tutt and his friends. So his opening statement is deceptive, it is slippery, and it is cowardly, because he's not prepared to go on there and go full trans rights now, because he knows he'll lose. So he's trying now to say, I, as the great academic, I am policing what is the boundary of acceptable Marxism here, and you, Mr. Has, and your evil meme-sharing Twitter followers who are reducing people to tears in the Deep South, you are threatening us with the memes, and me as a Marxist professional, I am now going to define what the limits of this are. So slimy, slippery, cowardly introduction.
Very good. Tanya, do you want to say anything before I respond?
No, go for it.
No. Yeah, I mean, I try, and what gets me is to gaslight it. Because they want to make it like, and him, well, not, he will, I mean, he tends to, he hasn't blocked me yet, but whenever I comment on something on one of his things, so I want to get him to engaging, though I know he won't. So what I call the tutters, like that Conrad dude will come on and say something, but then they go away. When one good sign maybe is, it used to be a couple of years ago, they'd get more of their friends would come up and like pile on you, but now they're usually kind of left alone to do their thing. So maybe that's a good sign. But is that this thing like, well, why do you care? Like, they want to make us like we're obsessed about genitals, we're obsessed about quote unquote trans women, and it's so frustrating. It's like, do you think this is what we wanted to be spending our time on? Whether it be you or Tanya or me or all the other people who were doing things that then had to stop, and we had to be like, what? And not just deal with the therapeutic thing about affirmation care and all that stuff, but deal with Marxists like this guy trying to be like, all of a sudden we just decided one day that we're going to go after trans people or something. And it's also like, no, when you're uprooting everything, when you're trying to change the material definition of what a human is, what a woman and man are, then sorry. The best, and I would agree with you, Alexander, the people best placed to ruthlessly critique that are Marxists. or people that have a good understanding of it. And for him to kind of present himself as like, and it was so condescending. Like I consulted with comrades and I took under advisement. And so I'm here to like, like, it was so just slimy. I agree with that. And this first, like, my first thought is like, well, who the hell are you, Tut? Who knows you out of certain circles, And also this idea to call him the father of the horde.
If I were Haz, I'd put that on a t-shirt.
No, I'm like, market that. Father of the horde is some badass shit. No, I'm like, I can guarantee you no one's calling Tut the father of the horde. Maybe a Tut. Maybe it's Tut. That could be it. But it's also this notion of like, and also what I always think of is like, you freaking people are going to fight the class war and you can't take a meme. You can't take a woman saying, no, sorry, do what you want to do, but you don't get to come in the women's faces. This is going to drive you to tears. You have to have an adult coloring book and consult your comrades and cry in each other's ears, and yet you're going to fight organized capital and the state and imperialism. Are you kidding me?
Well, that's the truth of being. The truth is revealed right there, though, because they're not fighting anything. They're fighting feminists online. They're doing that. But are they going to go up against the incredible reactionary power of the American federal, state, and local government with its massive machinery of repression? Is Daniel Tuck going to lead the charge against that? Of course he's not. And the same is true for his equivalents in Britain and everywhere else as well. They're not interested in doing that. What they're interested in is carving out a little area for themselves where essentially they can be the, in Russia prior to 1917, there was an avenue for it existed for what was called a legal Marxist, which is basically somebody who could present a very diluted, bastardized form of Marxism that would get endorsed essentially by the Tsarist government. That's what Daniel Tutt is now. They're all legal Marxists. They're presenting versions of Marxism which are completely acceptable to the ruling class, which are completely acceptable to those in power, and which will not have you effectively blackballed by academia, but will get you promoted. Because your job as a Western legal Marxist is to present a cartoon version of Marxism that is not about the ruthless critique of all that exists. It's not about building a militant organization of workers. It's about turning Marxism into essentially a drawing room conversation piece. And that's it, where it can be kept nice and safe. And you can create avenues for people who do get interested in it to run down effectively an ideological cul-de-sac and live in this carefully curated world where people like Daniel Tutt and many others will tell you what the official Marxist line is. And you can remain there and never be bothered by the state authorities or never fall foul of the reactionaries at all, because that's a nice, safe road that they've been given. And as long as they stay in it, they'll be left alone. As soon as you stray out of that and start actually organizing amongst workers and trying to bring the Marxist-Leninist worldview to the working class in a way that the working class can understand, at that point, you've crossed the line. And these guys don't want to cross the line. They want to spend their time trying to own the feminists online. That's safe.
He's petrified of it. And the first time I saw this, and that's where I got him when I was looking at that, I'm like, it seemed to me like he had this idea. So he wanted to talk to him. But he had to literally check off everything off his list to make sure that nobody could come at him later. It's like, no, but I mentioned the trans stuff. No, I mentioned this stuff. No, I mentioned the meme. I mentioned Dugin. I mentioned Heidegger. I mentioned all this stuff. So I protected myself, like a prophylactic of disclaimers and finger pointing. So now I can bequeath with you. I can allow you to have this discussion with me. I mean, I'm thinking, who does this guy think he is? Have you seen that before, Alexander?
Well, yes, it happens all the time. When you run into any of the official Marxists in this country, most of them these days would refuse to engage with me at all. But before they do so, they have to essentially denounce you to their audience. It's like, I know I'm talking to the bad person, and therefore I must say the woke version of 5 Hail Marys before doing so. I must denounce the noonday devil, because otherwise my next book deal might not go through. So yeah, it's like you're supposed, if you're an actual Marxist, you're supposed to be unafraid of a difficult discussion, because if you read Lenin or Stalin, you can see they both valued very difficult discussions about the most difficult thing of all, which is seizing state power and building a socialist, building a worker state. Not much more difficult than that. And you don't get there by being in a cul-de-sac or being only surrounded by comforting voices that agree with you. You have to have very hard but very comradely arguments with people to reach a better understanding. These people aren't interested in that. They're interested in 2 things: hysterical screaming to own somebody, and then like self-reinforcing circles where they all get together and say, "Well, you were so good on there when you called him an apostle of Dugin. That was really great. That was really great. Do that again. Play your hits, Daniel."
Yeah, and not realizing that, and I agree with you when I heard him call it the father of war. I'm like, you think that's going to reduce his appeal? you think that young men look and say, oh, let me look. And if you saw the whole episode, I mean, it's really, he did he so disarmed them. It was fun. It was a beautiful thing to watch. It was like, okay, guys, who do you want to sign up with, Daniel Tutt or the father of the horde? I'm like, I can tell you this from my anecdotal evidence. I have a almost 17-year-old son. I can tell you that none of his friends would be signing up on the Tutt camp. Not a one. No way. So I don't know if it's all betas and metrosexuals. I don't know. Again, that's cool, but fine. So I think that how much time do you have with us, Alexander?
I'll have to go in about 10 minutes.
Okay, because we have, I guess that Tanya and I can go through the comments beforehand. Because I would say that I think what we've covered already and what's already been written, especially by Christian Parenti and the Cargo Cult of Woke, the publications that are on, let me see, this site, the Reactionary Nightmare of Gender Fluidity. So there's stuff on the Communist Party of Great Britain has some stuff on this. And I think that Parenti really gets at and kind of how this, a bit of a primer about how we got here in terms of the left institutions. But before you go, what do we do? How do we, let's just focus on Marxists. Yeah. So we have people who were, we have the Daniel Tutts and the Tutters. We have the professional, like the legal Marxists you talked about, who seem to not want to, so even though we're going to assume that they know this is whatever, they're not about to take a stand because it would cost them something and they would lose invitations. So how do we, for lack of a better term, detrans the left, in particular groups that say they're Marxist, Leninists, etc.? Do you have any thoughts on that besides just holding your ground and not caving into?
Making the argument persistently and not bending to irrational rubbish is one thing. But I think the bigger part of this is also like a problem of what constitutes the left in the West in particular, which is that, as I said earlier, it went off the rails starting in the 50s. It's never really got back to the point where it is a militant organization of workers. It's not, and it's a hysterical organization of certain academics and middle class people who like to hold hands together and pretend they're engaged in some sort of fight. So it's a matter of actually leaving Western Marxism behind. First of all, developing a proper critique of it and like where it went wrong and how, and then building our organizations anew, learning from the failures and being prepared to say what has come before has led us to a point where now irrational nonsense, and hysteria have gripped all of these organizations. They are offering up distortions of Marxism, which are completely disconnected to the real legacy of the great Marxist thinkers of the past. And therefore, we have to move beyond these organizations and the concept of the left as it has been understood probably since the period after World War II, because it's clearly led us into a dead end. And so, therefore, how do we go forward? We need to go forward in, I would suggest, two ways. First of all, by remembering something that Lenin said, which is that communists should act as tribunes of the people, meaning that we have to be better read, better at delivering arguments, be constantly seeking to connect Marxism with the masses, not just tiny circles of people who will agree with you, but going out there and actually exposing the arguments to the working class and elements in the middle class as well, but predominantly the working class, and testing your arguments with them and engaging with real people. Because the Daniel Tutts of the world don't do that. None of the academic, legal Marxists that I called them will. And if you do that on a regular basis, you'll learn very quickly what works and what doesn't in terms of connecting with the mass of people. This nonsense won't connect with the mass of people at all. It'll just get laughed at, which is why they can't expose it to them and why they don't want to expose it to them. And so if you're consistently trying to connect with the mass of the population, if you're consistently trying to bring them over to the Marxist-Leninist worldview, as some of us in my party are, then you will see what has gone wrong, because there's never been a moment where the professional left is so far away from the great mass of the working class, not just in Britain, but in America as well, and in Canada and elsewhere. And they bury their heads in the sand, call everybody who doesn't agree with them a fascist or a racist, and they never interrogate for a moment, well, if there are working class people who are saying things which may well be racist or display some other kind of prejudice, well, how did it get to that point? Are we not interested in how people adopted that? Are we not interested in interrogating why working class people absorb what are bourgeois reactionary ideologies? Are we not interested in understanding that? Do we not want to investigate that using the tools that scientific socialism has given to us? Or do you just want to go for a cheap denunciation online? And as long as the Western left has their way, it will remain cheap denunciations online. The other point is that one of the things that we have to do is we have to take seriously the idea of like reclaiming the trade union movement as a vehicle for the working class again, and not a vehicle for bureaucratic careerists who are obsessed with gender ideology and other things. Because at the moment in union, I mean, somebody in the comments mentioned how her own union failed Kathleen Stock and refused to defend her, because the union bureaucracy was completely captured by all this stuff. And the same would be true in many other unions as well, not just UCU. And so the unions have to be reclaimed. The power has to be taken out of the hands of these sort of the dead hand of bureaucracy, which is filled with people who are completely disconnected from workers' struggle but claim to represent workers. And so the spaces and organizations that are supposed to be there to represent the working class need to be taken back in so many different ways. A fighting program needs to be actually battled for in those unions and fought for, and all this nonsense needs to be chased out of it, because it could only triumph when the working class had no influence over any of this. The working class has been pushed out of having any real politicization for 40 plus years, and this is the result. You get a bunch of very silly petty bourgeois people backbiting each other and trying to score, cheap points with each other, and obsessed over things which are completely ridiculous and irrational. And only return to real class politics is going to solve that. And that is what some of us in CPGBML and other areas are attempting to do at the moment. So I'll leave my comments there for now.
Great. Well, that's very a great wrap up, and I can't think of anything I would disagree with. I might come up with something, because I try if possible after I have a podcast like this to maybe write up something based on it, and then put it up on a Substack and have it linked to the video. And if I do that, I'll share it with you to get your thoughts on it in case I don't want to misquote you or get something.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to get it out and also trying to model how to stand up to these people. And I, again, I'm not at an institution at the moment, so I can be a bit free, but I'm finding that I'm really enjoying getting back to my working class roots. Where I come from, very working class family, out of Teamsters, loggers, and policemen, cashiers, and so I'm just I'm really enjoying just being very direct with the BS, because for a couple of years, and I think Ty would probably agree. First, you're trying to have a conversation with people, especially with someone who's presenting themselves as any kind of Marxist or feminist. And then and then at a certain point, you're like, there's just too much time for this. If it's, I'm not going to give BS any leverage. And when someone like Conrad comes at me, I'm going to turn it, and a good tool is to turn it around on them. So, for example, so that's interesting, Conrad. When did you become an expert on the women's room? When did you, just to show, I think, that it's easy to combat this or to model how you can do that. And then also for them to know that I don't know what goes on in your self-referential circle, but this is crazy. This, to most people, this sounds crazy, So that's my small thing, or maybe it's just how I rationalize my time on resistance further. That could be also it. But I want to say that how much I really enjoyed you coming on. Thank you so much. I know Tanya has as well.
Yes.
I hope this isn't the last time that we are parlaying, whether it be online or offline. And even though I shouldn't, because you're doing what you should be doing, I just feel like I should thank you for giving some sort of medal. I mean, when you're dealing with, just as an example, at the best case scenario, Daniel Fett, at the worst case scenario, a Conrad type of guy. When it comes, I'm just focusing on the quote unquote left, Marxist left. When someone comes on and talks like you, I'm like, okay, we're not totally crazy. Things could totally switch off and switch on dime, and nobody told us. Well, I just really want to give props for props are due, because we know that it's not easy to say no. 2 + 2 is still 4, and that type of thing. So I just want to thank you for coming on. Tanya, do you want to say anything before we let Alexander go on with the rest of his day?
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you. Yeah. So there's so much I'd like to ask, but yeah. Time.
We'll have him back on. Yeah, I think he had an okay time. And also, what I like to show is again, obviously everyone can tell that I'm not British, I'm American, and I'm also trying to. I don't this Daniel Tutt stuffy. Well, in my
get Daniel Tutt.
It can also be fun. You can give a joke and take a joke. It's like, please, people, we're not all at the Oxford time table. I mean, there's time and place for that. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy dabbling in it, but it's just like, we get the sticks out of our ass and the nonsense out of our brains, please. As a thing. All right. Well, Tanya's going to stick with me, because we have several comments that we should go through. I'd like to put them on the screen, unless they're, very bad words, then I won't. So I would just like to say that thanks again, Alexander. Please check him out. You can see on this, he's at his X account is at Marx Engels LNIN. Please check him out.
Telegram.
And Telegram.
I followed the Telegram channel.
Okay. Well,
yes, that's a very active debate chamber, that one.
Is that the same? Well, I'll add it to the follow-up.
Yeah, I'll find it. It takes me half an hour to find.
Yeah, it's okay. We're not people can wait for that. We'll get it. Anybody who comes on my infant podcast, I try to plug as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. Look.
Yeah. So please check that out. And also, I caught a couple of your live streams. He does live streams on a variety of topics on X. They're check those out. Conrad, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I hope this is the beginning of further collaborations.
All right. Well, hopefully so. And thank you for the invitation. And speak again soon.
Very much so. Bye.
night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good day.
So okay, so Tanya,
Hi.
it's just you and me. But how much time do you have? Because we have comments that I like to put on screen, unless they're
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it. Put the comments on screen. I don't have a time limit, but
No, that
sitting
was
still.
cool.
You sit still. Yeah, that was great. What a nice chat. And he was so informative. It was really great. Very, very well done.
No, I mean, just the no nonsense is nice to see. I mean, and I thought at it was sometime today, I thought, oh, I should pull up that Daniel Tutt video. Because that's some of the most hilarious stuff I've ever seen.
Well, he started right away with the be kind, right? Hashtag be kind. Don't be mean. You seem like a mean guy. My friends are crying.
You're in cheer? Well, why is that my problem? And I, to be honest, I don't know what tweet he was talking about. So maybe it was really the most terrible tweet that was ever tweeted. That's possible. But it's also that, like, I don't know, but again, I'm not gay in America, and I'm not where these people are. But I'm thinking they make it sound like everything is like it was 40 years ago or something. Like that
Tara,
gay rights weren't won, but somehow somebody is like in immediate danger for being gay. It's like that. It's like as it was all these years ago, and I'm like, well, in some places, yeah, in the United States, as a regular basis, I'm wondering if that's true.
if I saw a meme that made me cry, like honestly, I can't imagine, but let's pretend I saw a meme that made me cry. I would never tell a soul. I certainly wouldn't phone my friend and be like, "Oh no, oh no, guess what? I'm so sad because I saw a meme that I could just turn off." No, that's crazy. No, you don't get to be an adult crying about memes. That's ridiculous. Honestly.
Okay, so here's we are. So people, thank you for thank you. I think we have a lot of new people to the show that Alexander brought to the yard. So thanks. I'm glad we shared the stream, and welcome. Please do, if you like this content or found us at all entertaining or a hate to love or love to hate watch or something like that, please do like, follow, subscribe. It helps us out. This is a new project, so I'm learning as I go. So any support is welcome, and any suggestions for future morbid symptoms podcasts, I'm open to suggestions, and we use the morbid symptom broadly. So if you need economic one, a culture one, political one, or the configuration. So let's see. Grassy Knoll says, is this how they establish their identity now that they have abandoned any Marxist economic policies?
Yeah, if they ever had any to begin with. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder, because it just is so. Again, I think there's in these circles, if to the extent that these leftists, whether it be on campus or the reading group or whatever, just the sense to become kind of therapeutic affirmation spaces. That nobody can be told no anymore, or that has to learn how to be able to defend their argument, to withstand a counter argument. Because some of that just does not belong together. You'd be like, okay, if you believe this, you can't also believe this. So if they want to say, so we can have a discussion like, okay, there's a small group of people who, for whatever reason, want to be recognized as the opposite sex. Okay, how do we deal with about that as a society? But that doesn't require lying. It doesn't require saying that male and female are social constructs, or that there's nothing essentially masculine about the penis. I mean, we don't need the bullshit. And it makes it more difficult for the people who for whatever reason, want to be recognized as the opposite sex within reason. Okay. Because a lot of quote unquote TRAs probably don't they don't consider themselves transgender or transsexual. This is their, I don't know, their hill to, they're going to say this most oppressed class. There's nobody more oppressed than a middle class or elite white middle-aged dude who wants to be called Nancy instead of Nick.
It's a real power trip, right? Like, I think it was Helen Joyce or someone who said that it's a bunch of paraphilias clustered. Like, it's not just the AGP or whatever. It's a bunch of them. So, there's the getting off on not only the masochistic, oh, I'm just a poor little that kind of thing. But they also get off on making people do what they want, right? Like women
Yeah.
they have to submit. They must not dissent. And that's a trip for them, right? It
Yeah.
just is. That's the incel to
People are
transcel.
utilizing that as well. Yeah. And to be clear, what we're talking about what we call like TRAs, so trans rights activists, and all this other stuff, and also a lot of the people who say they're trans. I'm not buying the gender dysphoria thing. That's a symptom.
No,
That's a symptom that some people have. There's a thing called body dysmorphia. There's also people who want to think that their legs should be cut off or shouldn't belong to them, or they become convinced that there's something. They become convinced that something with their body is wrong. Anorexia and bulimia is also a form of body dysmorphia. So there are people who have that, but it's a small minority of a small minority, and it gets used as a rationale, as a cudgel, to be like, well, you have to be nice. You have to be nice. You have to be nice. And it's like, well, okay. However, we're not talking about, again, transgenderism becomes a chaotic concept because of all the things that people want to capture under that term. So a 4-year-old who's really effeminate or just has an active imagination, a rape victim who wants to remove anything sexual from her body, somebody has autogynephilia, somebody who's related to transvestism, the Wachowski brothers in The Matrix who literally said that it was sissy porn that was typical for their transition. So there's a lot of stuff that gets cobbled together under quote unquote transgender and trans rights that have nothing to do with each other.
No, and the women and the men don't really connect either, right? Men tune out to get more sexual pleasure. Women do it for the opposite. They run away from their sex, their biology. They're often suffering from trauma. I mean, we can listen to detransitioners. Like there was a young GNC centric who talked about how she and her friends who pretended to be boys would go to this YMCA, and there would be a bunch of middle-aged men, and these were like teenagers, right? These girls. And they would go to the YMCA where there would be a bunch of men, middle-aged men pretending to be women who would, get them into BDSM and gaslight them about how those girls represent the patriarchy because they're pretending to be boy. It's not the same thing. It's just not. Men and women do it for different reasons.
Again, there's the norm and there's the rules and there's the exception to the rule. So, for example, people who I know of, not know, but people I know of, when it used to be called transsexuals, have told me that they're really skeptical. I've said online, they're really skeptical of this whole movement because of how sexualized it is. Because I said, if you actually go through the process of, if you're a man and you go through the process of having your testosterone blocked and you go on estrogen, after a period of time, your sex drive goes away. Yeah. You're not into sex with that. So that's one of the things that you have to do. That's one of the things the doctors who used to present them. If you really want to do this, here are the things that are going to happen before the affirmation thing. So when you have now, you have these guys who say they're a woman inside or whatever, and they don't have any, they may take a bit of estrogen because they want to have the boobs or what, but they keep everything else because they want to have the gender euphoria, which is a sexual experience.
Yeah. It's an honor. And
so to make that and to combine together mental distress which is a symptom. Yeah, gender dysphoria is a symptom with a variety of male sexual fetishes and paraphilias and kind of marginal behavior, and transvestites or a really effeminate gay men that for whatever reason maybe internalize homophobia and decided it would just be better for one or easier for one to live, quote unquote, to be that. To combine all that into one thing and then kind of turn it into an identity that needs to be affirmed and protected, it's crazy. And it's harmful. It's harmful for women. It's harmful for kids, especially gay kids, autistic kids, younger people that have any kind of trauma that get sold this idea that you can kind of be born again. Or maybe my problem is I would really be happier if I was a girl, if I was a boy, or neither, or both, or whatever. And then there's all this stuff that comes out. And then you have, when people who regret it, which is a lot of, not all of them, then no one wants to touch them. Or they've internalized transphobia. That's why they do transition. It's not because they actually aren't don't have a gender that doesn't match the body, whatever that.
Well, yeah, they were never really trans. No, they were never really trans.
Or never really trans.
They just got it wrong. But little kids can't get
cut off, sterilized through puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. Yeah, it's crazy. But a lot of things, so much has got cobbled in together, it doesn't belong together.
Yeah.
It does so much harm, even for people who used to be called transsexuals, who would never actually tell you that they're the wrong sex. They would say they feel like, yeah, there's a big difference between I'm a woman and I feel like I should have been one. Anyway, Little Stone says, respectfully, comrades, read Lavender and Red. It's a detailed historical analysis of the gay and transgender issues in the Soviet Union. Well, there's people who obviously gay people, but gay is a material thing. So if you're a guy and you like guys, yeah, there's ideas involved in that, but that doesn't require us to disassociate from reality. Transgender, yeah, that's a term, that's a new term. I really doubt that in the early Soviet Union, anybody was using that term transgender. People can go now back and apply that term to it. There's been cross-dressing for a long time. There's been societies, there's been cultures that when they had really effeminate men or really masculine women had some sort of, concept or positionality for them. But but this is the thing, people who say they're transgender and do practices of that does not negate the fact that they were a man. If they were born a male, they stay male regardless of what they do. Same thing for women. There's nothing you can do to yourself that's going to change your sex. And gender is an completely ideological term. And the thing with like concepts, we think, we feel, we imagine, that's fine. But there's a difference in the relationship between that and the material world. So
I don't know if Little Stone realizes that whatever happened in the early Soviet Union with, the acronym people, it doesn't affect. Right now, we have women who have men in their prison cells. We have women who cannot go to rape shelters because there are men there pretending to be women. It just doesn't speak to my life, what happened in the early Soviet Union. I really don't care. I'm not going to read it because I don't care. I have real things to deal with.
No, it's also the truth. It's like, so what? That's their problem and their history. That's fine. So, for example, I have three kids. I have two girls. And when all this crap started to come out about gender neutral bathrooms, and if you're a woman, if you say you are, they were at the age where if we were at a store, if we were at like a restaurant or a theater, I would consent them to go to the bathroom together. But then I had to stop doing that because you don't know what kind of rando is going to be in the bathroom. So then I would have to go with them, which is, it's a little thing. And then I would think, well, this is ridiculous. I have to do this because anyone who says they feel like a woman can then can go into gets the idea they can go into any place a woman is. Because if you're going to live as a woman, what does that mean in the city? It means you go to the women's room.
Yeah. Nobody has surgeries. Yeah, nobody has surgeries without thinking they're going to go to the women's room. Nobody. That's why I don't buy the whole reasonable trans. Okay, because nobody goes through all of that and then I'm just gonna use the men. No, it doesn't happen.
The fact that this has nothing to do with me. If you take the decision for whatever reason, if you take the decision, and we'll leave to the side the fact that these kinds of services, these kind of medical services, are moral or not. We'll just leave back to the side. But if you make the decision, if you're a man, and you take the decision to make yourself look as feminine as possible, and have your dick cut off and have fake breasts, that's, glory, hallelujah. You're not a woman. You made that decision, and whatever consequences or difficulties come from that decision are for you to figure out. And not for me to figure out. Not my problem. Not my daughters to figure out. You will have to figure out, because there's lots of bathrooms. And it's not about just peeing it off. There's lots of bathrooms that are single stall, so just one fine.
No, it's not our problem to deal with.
Our obligation to pretend to be a secondary or an assistant, what do they call it? Like a supporting actor to your fantasy. And that's a delusion.
They always want to make women responsible for men's feelings. Can you please coddle my feelings? I'm a man. Coddle my, just like the Conrad guy getting so mad at you because you're a woman who says no. That's the thing, right? It's not about his politics or his ideology. It's that you are a woman and you say no and he doesn't like it. that's just it. That's
This
the
idea
basic.
that me saying males don't belong in the women's room is fascist. I would say,
Yeah, and you know what? People don't even know what that means anymore because we've been called fascist left and right for how many
Like,
years?
is
We're
it?
all fascists. So okay, well, I guess no one's a fascist. Everybody's a fascist. No one's a fascist.
I've never said it. It's like if you want to, if wear what you want, if you want to, call yourself what you want. If you want, I think those surgeries are barbaric, but you have to have a discussion when it's an adult, fine. But it's like you make those decisions. You have to be able to deal with the consequences, not to expect the rest of us just to pretend to go along with your fantasy or your feelings aren't going to get hurt. My feelings get hurt all the time. Nobody gives a shit.
And that's how that no one I care. I care.
All the time. You're like your
Okay.
family members, like your your partner, your friend. Yeah, I care what my friend. Yeah, they even care. But like I would make just general people like if I all of
No,
a sudden
society doesn't care.
I decide that I wanted to be it's as crazy. It's like that's why I say nudist rights. Whenever
Yeah.
someone says trans rights, you place nudist with it. News rights are human rights. And if you think about it, clothing norms are social constructs.
Totally.
Nudist
Way more
clothing
respect.
and they have to repress and suppress and limit that to certain times and places because of the social norm that when you're out in public, you have to cover up your stuff.
Yeah.
So why can't we set them free? Why should we queer that clothing norm? Why should why should nudists have to wear clothes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the same thing. There's that idea that and that's their true authentic self, they never feel more alive. They never felt more fantastic or naked. So why should society say, no, when you're out and about, you have to cover your parts?
Yeah, no.
And actually they would have more of a point because they're not actually asking us to pretend there's such a thing as a girl dick. Yeah. Or a male vagina. Or somehow a girl brain gets in a man's body or a man's brain.
Yeah, it's so stupid. All the stories.
Like, no, and we feel oppressed by the clothing norms. Nudist rights, human rights. Let's get this thing going.
This comment is right, Hugh Keenan. He says empowered victimhood, but it's even more than empowered victimhood. It's sexualized victimhood because a lot of these men are masochists, right? Like the reason that they do the sissy porn is because they like, that's their new thing. They've tweaked their signals, their normal signals, so that now they need to totally weird out.
Viewers who haven't had to learn about things like sissy porn, would you mind saying what that is, what the connection is to transgenderism in males?
Sissy porn. You know who? There's a woman, Genevieve Gluck, and she writes under her own name, and she writes for Redux with 2 X's, which is a great feminist news media platform. And she has done all of this, oh God, awful work watching these things, these sissy porn things. Can you imagine? Like, it must do a number on a person's brain. But so sissy porn is, and you know what? I'll just tell you, I've never seen it. I'm not watching it. This is just what I've heard from Genevieve in many accounts from her. It's this sort of hypnotic porn that men watch, and it involves forced feminization. So they say, I don't know, but they will say something like, you have to do this, you have to, and there's a lot of kind of sound and there's the whole, what do you call that? ASMR? Is that what the noises that kind of, right? So there's a whole sort of modern psychological, right? There's a whole, they've got all of this technology working to lull these men into a state where they get these suggestions and it's forced feminization. It's like, okay, you're going to go out wearing your stockings under your pants, and then they do that and they get off on it.
Basically what it is that it's in a nutshell is that it's sissy porn. It's men watch it. They get off on pretending to be women who are having really degrading things done to them. Yeah. So sissy porn is my understanding is there's the aesthetic, so there's the music and all that stuff, but it involves a guy who's pretending to be a woman who's being like shit on, who's being found, who's being denigrated. Yeah? All kinds of denigration. Imagine any kind of denigration fantasy you can have about what you think, denigrating a woman sexually, and just denigrating them. They get off on imagining themselves being a denigrated woman. They want to be denigrated like a woman.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be told that's a female gender identity. So
Right. But don't forget the forced feminization. That's a component too.
That you get off. You want to be a woman because you want to be denigrated like you think women are denigrated. That gets you off.
Right. Right.
And I'm not saying this is all people who say they're trans, but it's been studied by sexologists and by feminists who said there's a strong component of this in transgenderism in men, especially men who do the transition later on.
Oh yeah.
But
Do they father children? They father children and then they discover that they're women inside? No.
The idea is to think, okay, if I think of myself as this woman and who's getting sexually denigrated, and that gives me a thrill, they use that as my understanding, because I'm not in their minds. I'm not in their mind. As evidence that they have a woman inside of them. They have a female gender identity.
Yeah, because for them, women is a sex position.
Some women who like. I'm not saying there are no women who don't like getting denigrated. You know, there's sexual differences, yeah. But this is a big component of men who adopt transgenderism in their 30s, 40s, whatever, transition later. And it's also there's other things that we can involve in it. But so yeah, Steve Mack is saying, can you clearly and simply why it's idealism? Okay, so I'm a woman. We can see that. I don't, regardless of what I think, or what other people think, I am a woman, adult woman, female. Now, if I gravitate to the idea, for whatever reason, the idea of myself as a man or transitioning from being a woman to a man is appealing to me, and I start thinking of how, like, well, I am kind of aggressive, I am kind of whatever. I get this idea in my head that no, maybe I have this thing called a gender identity. It's more male than female. So my body is female, but my gender identity, my idea, this gendered sense of self that I've been encouraged to consider, is male or non-binary. It's idealistic because it's completely subjective. It's completely an idea in somebody's head. Feelings, ideas, idealism. Yeah. Whereas materially, you know, you may think maybe I look like a man to you, but you know, I'm a woman, have 3 kids vaginally, female. Yeah. So, but if I have the idea for whatever reason, that it appealed to me, like, well, maybe I want to transition. Maybe I, want to be a trans man, or maybe I am. Or maybe that's why I've never really, I've had more male, always felt more comfortable with the boys and the girls or whatever it is, or, this idea. It's a completely idea thing. Now, ideas have material consequences. So if this idea leads me to dress differently, obviously I'm dressing differently. If it leads me to have my breasts cut off, that's the thing. If I take testosterone and my voice drops, and people start reacting to me differently, either because they will, because of being nice or not, or whatever it is. So these ideas, once they develop into practices and you have actual physical things done to, those things are unreal. The thing is that there's no such thing, material, objective thing as a trans person or a non-binary person. There are males and there are females. Yeah. Lots of personalities. But sexuality, all kinds. I mean, people have all. I mean, can you imagine if we all had to open up about our sexualities? Some people do. Yeah. We know these things. That's a spectrum. Personalities. There's tall, poor, fat, thin, aggressive, non-aggressive, funny, serious, stupid, smart, all that stuff. A lot of variety. But at no point can a man transition to a woman or a woman transition to a man. That's a total idea. It's a faith-based idea. And people, if you think about this from what you see, then you can say, well, it's okay. If we live in a free society, if someone really wants to be, quote unquote, they want to transition, then, fine. And I would say, okay, fine, but then those kinds of conversations should be rooted in facts. that no matter what you do, your sex is determined at conception. Whatever the sperm is that hits the egg, that is what determines what your sex will be. And it doesn't matter what you do or what you say or what you take away from your body or what you add to your body. You can call yourself, it's discursive, yeah? It's a language based. It's language and aesthetics and medical products. It's what is the material effects of this idea. Yeah.
Right.
And so that's what I would say to that. And I will try to be clear when I do a write-up, Steve, of this episode. I will have a very precise thing on that. I can let people to get, because I realize that some of these terms that we get used to using, other people might not be aware of it. And also, a lot of us use terms that we think we kind of know, but we actually get pressed into saying specifically what we mean. We lose it because language, of course, is an imperfect. It's a fantastic thing, but it's an imperfect thing. Do you want to add anything to that?
It's idealism because after I'm dead, someone could unearth my bones and have them roll out of the grave, and people will be able to tell that I'm a woman. It doesn't matter what I dressed as or pretended. The material reality is that I'm a woman. Simple.
Yeah.
That's why it's idealism to pretend that I'm not.
Yeah.
Because the idea dies, but the bones are still, he's still there.
That's a good analogy. Thank you, Tanya. And also, it's the idea that sex has been around for a very long time, billions of years.
Yeah. What does Heather Hayek say? Right?
Humans are the only sex species. Mammals are, sorry. But anyway.
Yeah.
And it's all for a reason. And I'm not saying that so to try to transcend it, you can try to transcend it, but that's an idealistic endeavor propped up by technological advances and language games and legal fictions.
Yeah, for sure. And all the money that you're paying to big pharma, that's not very
It's a lot of money. More genders, more money. Oh, lots of money to be involved in this.
Lifelong patient full of iatrogenic illnesses that you always have to pay for.
I think it's only trying to accept the body you're in than to take these radical steps. And I'm not saying I can't speak for everybody. I'm not an expert in this. But I do know, without a doubt, that the vast majority of people who adopt the TQI plus whatever are not suffering from gender dysphoria. They know exactly what to tell people to get what they want because they're told to online. Exactly what to say, to get your puberty blockers, to get your parents to let you find your breasts, or to get your parents or your students, your school to call you by your preferred pronoun. All these people online kids and vulnerable adults to quote unquote explore their gender identity, and they'll help them explore their gender identity. And I'm telling you right now, if anybody's telling your kid they want to help them explore their gender identity, you better red flag that person. Just FYI. They're probably doing it for them. Believe me. So songs 4K. Cornell's Preacher Jazz is a con artist pattern. Yeah, I
like it though.
I don't know what's a con. I think, and again, I don't know.
No, I don't know either.
My interpretation of this is that it's unfortunate that he decided to do this presidential campaign because he's turned himself into a caricature.
Oh, that's too bad.
If I hear Jazz Man one more time, I'm just like, dude, please stop with that stuff. It just means you're making stuff up as you go along. And that's fine. And if you're actually doing jazz, that's fine. If you're doing politics and a political campaign, it makes you look like an idiot.
Oh,
Yeah. So I don't know if he didn't know what was involved, or I don't know, or he just thought that the transition would be good because, and not to get anyone, he's a brilliant guy. You read his, especially when he really, his first 10 or 15 years, the Cornell Rust Reader. I mean, the guy is, but then he kind of, he went towards more of the public intellectual talking circuit, this type of thing, and also went more into theology because he's a Christian, and I don't think he's a fake Christian. I mean, he believes in Christ, and he went more into the theological thing. So I don't think he's a bad man. I think that like anybody else, you can become captured, you can become a victim of circumstance. There's certain incentives, there's certain things that he goes into that he's not, for whatever reason, isn't willing hasn't stopped this idea talking about trans rights all the time.
He
But
might not be able to hear women, right? He might be one of these guys that's really awesome, but when women speak, it's like, what do you mean? I don't hear it.
Yeah, this is true. And Bell Hooks, do you know who Bell Hooks is?
I do.
She was
Sure do.
her and Cornell were at Princeton. I think they were teaching at Princeton at the same time. And they were having this talk. I think it's recorded, it was online. I think it was maybe 2 years before she died. And they were joking, and she basically said, remember when at Princeton everybody was going around trying to suck your dick? And what she meant was that he was like the star and had this charisma, and he was this cool black dude. And she was also there, but for whatever reason, she wasn't getting as much.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Bring around you. And of course, this stopped. And to his credit, when he started being openly critical about Barack Obama, then she's like, and people are coming up to me like, well, you should talk to Cornell. And she's like, why should I talk to him? I'm not really against what he's saying in his critique about Barack Obama, but that was the first thing that maybe that scared him. I don't know, or maybe he wasn't willing to. I don't know, because he took the hit for being critical about Obama, and being an African American, being critical about Obama during the Obama years was not an easy thing to do.
Is that right?
Oh God, no. So he took a hit for that to his popularity.
That's too bad.
And so, I don't know, or maybe he just hasn't thought about it. I think some people just think that it's being nice. They're like, well, some people are trans and we should be nice about that because it's different. We're encouraged to feel bad for them.
Yeah. But it's always women who have to scooch over. I mean, isn't that funny? He can feel bad for this and this and this group, but what about women? Anybody feel bad for women and girls?
I'm just trying to understand why people, and it's not just men who do this, it's women.
Yeah, women do it too.
Women will tell women quite quickly you should be nice. And a bride of
nice.
That it's like there's this idea that the people who are supporting the gender ID and the trans rights stuff, a lot of them don't identify as it's themselves. They have held up this group as the most oppressed or the next
for sure.
group. And that we should do everything. And what happens and this is another thing about the idealism, Steve, I think that was your question. Steve. Let's think about the work that cis, this prefix cis does. I don't know if you remember, all of a sudden people sound like cis women and trans women. So even though they're against binaries, what this binary does is it presumes that there's a category of women, and under this category there are two types. There's cis women and there's trans women. And guess which one gets put under the oppressive thing? Whatever a binary, especially when you're doing the deconstruction, there's always a dominant part of the binary and an oppressed part of the binary. And the cis trans binary, the cis oppresses the trans.
The axis of oppression.
Automatically, what it does is, if a man says he's trans, and then the women, the quote unquote cis woman, which is ridiculous, it's only one type of woman, say something about it, they're being oppressive. They're not. They don't want this person to live their true selves. They don't want this. They want this person to pretend to be something other than they are. They're mean. They're mean, terse. Yeah, that's what that prefix does. So it's not innocent. And it's totally language based. Because they have to have the language. This whole thing is 95% language.
Yeah, totally.
This trans, no, because they couldn't get away with saying sex doesn't exist. So they divided it, right? So again, these people who don't like binaries make binaries all the time. So then we have cis and trans. Totally. Yeah, as if there's one category of women, and if the cis women want to hoard the category of women alter themselves, bad ladies.
Yeah.
And then you have the division between gender and sex. And they had to do this, or else they wouldn't be able to put through all this stuff about the pronouns, about this gender reassignment, gender recognition. That all requires this completely subjective, discursive split. Because I would defy anyone to look at yourself and you point to yourself and tell me where your gender is.
Yeah, it's impossible. If it's a soul, it's a religious.
To do this, if you really wanted to push me, say, okay, gender is this and sex is this. And if they are separate, you don't need to reference one to define the other.
Oh,
Sex
that's right.
you can define without referencing gender at all. Gender, good luck.
That's right. Perfect.
Doesn't hold up. So they have to have the moralization, the poor me, the cry bullying, or the most pernicious, oh, if you don't let your kid go on puberty blocker and change their name, they'll kill themselves. Also not backed up by any evidence. Total bullshit.
No.
Not true.
No,
Not
it's
saying
not true.
they're not more susceptible to that. And actually, after the fact, if you follow these people, usually their morbidities, whatever was causing them distress that they thought would be resolved, the quote unquote transition, doesn't go away when they transition. After the
No, it doesn't.
After the shine fades, and they realize that the problems they had are still there, plus they have the medical consequences. That is when the suicide rate goes up. As a consequence of the gender care, not because denying it. These people, these useful idiots, are get people killed.
Totally. And the Samaritan says that the Samaritan's guidance says that telling people that they're likely to commit suicide is quite dangerous. And so it's really irresponsible of all these people around. To say, oh, you're gonna kill yourself. So
you give kids or people, and again, if you really want something, and anybody who's a parent out there, if your kid really wants something, they will say and whatever they really want it. Yeah. And if they get this idea that, oh my gosh, for whatever reason this notion of trans and non-binary resonates with them for whatever reason. Maybe their friends are doing it, maybe it's cool, maybe they're having difficulty coming to grips with their sexuality, whatever it is. And then they're talking online all this stuff, and then they start hearing about, oh, if I don't, this idea that if I don't get this, if I don't go on this transition, that I'm just going to then my body's going to change, and then I'll never pass, and then I'll be suicidal.
Yeah.
People forget how social we are. It doesn't take that much to plant an idea in somebody's head. There's some sort of reinforcement, especially positive reinforcement. We call the love bombing. Yep. Oh, you get this community. They really want to help you explore and this and that, and it's really he's an expert too online, or don't you shouldn't tell your parents or whatever it is.
No, right? Your parents are bad. We love you. We're your new family. We're your glitter family. We love you. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's really. I think it really works for kids who weren't
so sideways. And then they're not the family anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's see.
Chiaro.
Thank you, Svetlana. I didn't find it previously. The conclusion seems to be very mixed on whether it's been positively in the USSR. Okay, so this is more about trans in the USSR. There's only males and females everywhere. There's no place in the world that has a person that is outside the sex, the sex binary.
No.
So, anyway, Cornell, Cornell Chameleon, you come and go. Yeah. Oh,
great
dear.
song.
Yeah. Incantations purify the believer. That's true.
Nice. That's great. I love that. That's totally, well put.
Well, and there's all these mantras, So trans women are women.
Sex work is work. Trans women are women.
Sex work. This belief in the quote unquote trans child.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, people, to think about this. Who needs there to be a trans child? A lot of it is, if you have these, and it's driven largely, I'm not saying there are women who transition, but this is driven largely by men.
It's the AJPs. We need an origin story.
In terms of discipline, in terms of shaking your thumb and finger and be nice, there's lots of women involved in that. I'm not gonna lie. Judith,
no, of course.
But in terms of driving this, so if you're a guy and you're, let's say, a Pritzker who was, what was his name? Jeff Pritzker, but what was his anyway, I'll use Caitlyn Jenner.
Colonel or Captain, he was in the army or something.
I'll use Caitlyn Jenner because most people, or what's the guys in the UK? Eddie Izzard or Caitlyn Jenner. So these are people these are men who decided late in life that they were going to, that they were finally going to be the woman inside. They always were. This is their talk, yeah. Now, you would think, and if I put myself in these guys' shoes, these guys like them, and I think, oh, it's too bad that I couldn't have transitioned when I was a kid before puberty.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously, if I'm 60 and I'm convinced, or I've convinced myself that I have some sort of woman trapped inside me for whatever reason, well, she's been there all along.
Yeah, you were born like that, born in the wrong body.
Yeah. So if we can help these trans kids, quote unquote, so then nothing but the puberty blockers, and yet these people saying that their kid knew they were a different gender at 5 and 3. I mean, it's just, and so of course, so this is so, and they might think that they're quote unquote helping these trans kids, which is an invention, but it's just bolstering their identity. It's bolstering this idea, this woman they have. If they have a woman in themselves now, and we tell them to change their name and disrupt their family and do all this stuff to their body, well, there must have also been this girl inside of them from the beginning. It's religious.
And don't forget the pedophiles. So Genevieve Gluck found in the W path, she did more research, and it's all in Redux, and she found that a bunch of, in a chat room for the W path organization, the World Transgender, the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, W path, that they have a pedophile forum, and the people contributing there were in W path. So it's more than just these guys need an identity. It's that there's, the men promoting this, get off on doing this to children. It's disgusting. It's really awful.
Some of them do, and some of them are just useful idiots who think that they're saving.
Oh yeah, no, they're not all pedophiles, but the influential ones at W path. Check it out.
I just want, I don't dispute that. Well, also, when it comes to queer theory, if you're gonna, the boundary between adult and child, also a social construct, in a way.
Yeah, for sure, different cultures.
I think because, just use myself as an example. I got my period when I was 11, so biologically, used to be like once you can have kids, like you should.
Yeah.
But we have the law the state that I was in, that from 16 and younger, you're a minor.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of people like, well, this is crazy. Or that the idea that an adult and a child, or that an adult, let's say that a 40-year-old and a 12-year-old can't have a meaningful relationship is a social construction. We're projecting our angst on this relationship that could be lovely. This stuff is not new.
It's not new. Not new.
Social media is new. And the people that go around making it like quote unquote identity that has to be affirmed, protected, and enshrined in law, that's new. But this other stuff isn't. So let's see. We have another thing. This is interesting. So people were talking about the book in the Soviet Union. Cases that made that queer sexuality was a product of capitalist society. Now, by queer you mean homosexual? No, homosexuality's been around way before capitalism was.
Even animals are homosexual sometimes.
Yeah, so homosexuality is not. Now, I'm not saying that how that's expressed and regarded and marketed doesn't change with the type of economy and political economy they have.
Look at pride
around since humans, So I would say, but in terms of how it's considered in the normative and how the social aspect of it. And Greece is a common. I mean, I don't know. I'm not living in ancient Greece, but the idea that it used to be quite normal for young guys and older guys to hang out.
Yeah, Japan too.
The other guy,
pederasty is all over the girls. Unfortunately.
Huh?
Japan too. They did that.
Yeah.
The older gay relation.
Thank you. Let's see. From Stalin onward, sexual mores in the Soviet Union were traditional. There were far more pressing issues to deal with than agonizing over a person's individual sexual preferences. Yeah,
I'm sure.
Sexual preferences doesn't change the fact that if you're male or female. I mean, this is the homophobia aspect of it. And somehow, that somehow there's something I could feel or think or want that would negate my body. Odd. Well, that's not a woman. If you want, I mean, it's just, oh,
Yeah.
this idea that it used to be, and there was this great meme that some church probably made that, so a conservative says the woman should do the dishes,
Huh.
and the feminist says anyone can do the dishes, and the gender ideologue says whoever does the dishes is the woman.
Right.
This
If they
is
never
like-
trans and do the dishes, right? That's what Juliet Long said. She never sees them transing and picking up a vacuum cleaner or caring for
or
an agent.
those who like fishnet stockings, or those who like high heels, I mean, it's just like, or to be denigrated in the bedroom, whatever, uh, etc. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm having some difficulty hearing Tara Van Dyke clearly. Is there a way to adjust the microphone? Have you been able to hear me, Tanya?
Yeah, but you're a bit scratchy. I didn't know if that was my end or not because I've had some stopping,
Yeah.
but it could be my bad internet.
I have it in here, but it's also that the kids are. This is my understanding, or this is my theory, actually. Is that the kids are off of school now, so everyone's using the internet. So that's my understanding of why.
Probably.
But I have it's plugged in, so I'm sorry if that's the case. I don't know. So I don't have a very good microphone, so. But I'm sorry. Hopefully, because usually I'm told I'm too loud, so I'm always surprised when people say.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh no.
Sound quality is poor. Sorry. Solidarity, comrade. This is true. My quality is very bad. Huh? No? Okay, yeah. No, hopefully it could be that also in the live stream that my volume isn't very good, but it could be that when it's the actual video that it's all right, because yeah, I haven't heard that before, but I'm sorry, I'll chip into it. But yeah, I don't have the best microphone.
All this damn technology is so hard.
Yeah. You sound good though. I can hear you fine, so I don't know.
It's good. I'm
It
just
was
using the little laptop.
It was a good conversation with Haas. The disclaimer by Chet was funny. It's true. After that part was over, they actually did have a nice conversation, but it was just so like, what's such a weird way of coming in. Like, let me be sure that no one can try to cancel me afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if the sound, I'm sorry if the sound is bad, but yeah, I don't know what to do about it. I'll have to listen to it because, yeah. Sorry about that because usually, again, but also, yeah. Do you want to answer this? What a MAGA communist is?
I think it's it's not a mega, it's a MAGA. Make American Great Again communist. They like some of the things that the Trump's MAGA movement espouses. Is that right?
Yeah.
MAGA
So
communists.
Hazelden and Jackson Hinkle and there's other people. They're trying to interact with MAGA. So not the Trump per se, not Trump or the elites around the rank and file MAGA people. They're trying to interact with them and get them on board. They're trying to do some political education, create some class consciousness here. Because I think they would say that what a lot of the issues that MAGA people have are legitimate issues. They just want to encourage them to understand them in a different way, which would be to connect them to capitalist political economy rather than some of the symptoms of it that people tend to do. That they're encouraged to do. Yeah. And a lot of people. Go ahead.
They seem to want to own their patriotism. Like, we love America, right? They're not like, oh, we're communists. America sucks. They
don't pick America. They focus on they don't deny the bad things, but they want to focus on the promise and the possibility and the good, which is a dialectical way of doing it, actually. Like, that you have to look at the good, the bad, and the difference, not just cherry pick what you like. And this puts them at odds, and why some people will say they're grifters. And again, I don't know what's in these people's hearts and minds, so I can just based on what I've seen. is that a lot of people on the left will go the Hillary Clinton line, think, oh, MAGA, make America great again, or just the bastard deplorables, they're all racists and sexists and transphobes and all that. And so these people are just paying just to gimmick. It's just a grift. They really don't care, or they're not really communist. They're not really this or that or whatever. And again, I don't know. Or the latest thing is that it's all content creation and caught online, not actual organization or material change, which could be the case, but doesn't mean it can't. Doesn't mean that it can't develop into that. I mean, things have to start someplace. So we have a lot of gray beards. You have gray beards. You have sour grapes. You have people that will hold up a meme that says something about trans people. Be like, see. So it's all. I mean, the infighting is real, people. And people go their own way, or basically we'll use Tut as a punching bag. It's fine. They're like, I don't care what you have to say, Daniel Tut. I don't really care what you have to say about my organization or what Marxism is or isn't. Enjoy your reading group. Enjoy your Nietzsche discussion panel. And again, nothing wrong with reading Nietzsche. Read what you want, people. Anyone who tells you not to read a book is weird. Like somehow Jugen is going to turn us all satanic or something. It's like, calm the frick down. We're not children. I mean, well, some of us are, but so that's MAGA communist. So people like Hazelden from Infrared, he's part of that group. Jackson Hinkle, I think there's a group called Midwestern Marx.
Yeah.
Also, there's some dude, Caleb something or other. I don't know.
Caleb.
Moffin,
the redhead.
Yeah,
I heard him. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so Vladimova, Jackson Hinkle. Yeah, look him up, you'll see. And let's see. Okay, the red brownness came from the Yeltsin period. This is from when the bit we were talking about. What's his name? Daniel Tut. And he was basically saying, basically giving his assessment of how the mega communists. So that he considered, but some of his comrades consider them red brownist. And Kobe Mock, I'm sorry if I say your name wrong, came from the Yeltsin period where the communist and nationalist forces rebel against the Yeltsin government. Can you hear me now, Tanya? Am I coming across you?
I could hear you, but I've always been able to hear you. Just that you sound a little bit like you're in a, like you're in a fishbowl or something. It's a little.
I don't know.
I'm not very good at.
I don't know, because with StreamYard, I clicked the thing. Someone told me that I should. That I should.
I think this is better.
That I should check. Okay. That I should click the adjust the volume, because when I'm doing live streams with Artless, who's in Ghana, she's often more quiet and I'm more loud, and so when people are listening to it, I can understand if one of us is booming and the other is quiet. So sorry about that. Hopefully when it could be also that sometimes with the actual video they're able to do something with that. I don't know, but I do apologize. But everything from my end it says it's fine, so I don't know. Okay, Yeltsin government. Okay, Yeltsin called him that. Okay, fine. Hinkle supports Trump. Well, he does in a way. I mean, I don't know. I'm not, Hinkle's 25 or 24 years old.
Yeah, he's baby.
I'll let you, because you like him and you think he's like a young Dora Explorer. He's like a male Dora the Explorer. So why don't you tell Grassy Knoll what you think about Hinkle in terms of Trump? Not MAGA, but Trump.
You know what? I only know what everybody knows. I think he's a young man, and I bet you that there are some things about Trump that he likes. Like, I bet if we could talk to him, then he would like some things about Trump, like the, kind of brazenness, and he's not a Cornel West type. He's not. He's not a Dennis Kucinich type. He's kind of a. It's kind of brazen, and I've seen him in sort of hostile interviews, and he can hold his own, right? He's
very good. He's very good. So I don't know what kind of role he's going to have in this organization, this American Communist Party, or front or whatever it is that they're forming. But he should be the press person. He should be in charge of political communication. He's really good on TV.
Yeah, he is cute. He's young. Yeah.
Now with Trump, he doesn't have, I would say, and if he doesn't have Trump derangement syndrome, which is a word that came out for people after the 2016 election, who, whenever Trump was involved, completely lost the ability to have any kind of nuance or reasoned thought. Now, Hinkle is also obviously very pro-Palestinian against Israel, and he's very critical of Trump's Zionism philosophy. So when Trump does something he likes or says something he likes, he's like, cool. When Trump says something he doesn't like, he does something he doesn't like, he does that. So that's basically that. But again, how he actually feels, I don't know. People want to, yeah. So that's what I'd say about that. But that Hinkle's been consistent when it comes to Ukraine war, and when it comes to Israel-Palestine, he's been quite consistent. And of course, Trump goes back. Trump seems to be a lot better on the Ukraine-Russia war, from my perspective, than certainly all the Democrats, most of the Republicans. But then on Israel-Palestine, what's the difference between Trump and Biden or Harris? Not much. Except for Trump seems to be a bit more transactional. So who knows? Let's see. A speech. Okay. So interesting. No national Bolsheviks then. Yeah, I'm not sure about that's for somebody else. Yeah, that part was crazy when the gay guy came calling. Okay, yeah, that must have been. I don't know if Kobe's talking about when Daniel Tutt brought up the crime, or somebody maybe somebody called in. I didn't watch the whole thing. Maybe someone called in later.
Yeah, maybe.
About the they saw the you know, you have to be all in with the gay stuff. It's the gay, be supporting gay stuff 24/7, or it's insufficient. Yeah, they want us to be guilty. You have to be guilty for not being a good enough ally, apparently.
Yeah.
Thought I'd get somebody else. Not for me. Let's see.
Don't know.
I think these are people talking back and forth.
Turn the treble up.
Yeah, I don't know how to do. I can't do that because I don't have that kind of system. I literally just have this cheap microphone. Yeah,
it's cute though.
Yeah, it's cute. It lights up, and I plug it into my computer, and that's it. I don't have a soundboard, and I don't have any options on StreamYard except to I can say like that it can automatically adjust the volume, which is what I have now, but apparently it's not doing it. So I'm sorry. Once I get a couple of Patreons or something, the first order of business is to get a better microphone. So I'm sorry about that. Okay, Neil doesn't support Trump. So yeah, so I would say that like support Trump, like no matter what. I mean, I think that he's like issue by issue. Because of course, if you want to resonate with MAGA, you can't slay their dragon. If you want to talk to MAGA, you can't be like that Trump. You know, you have to be like, I would assume you have to be a bit strategic about how you handle the Trump issue if you're talking to the rank and file MAGA, which are a lot of not only a lot of working class people, but not only of course. Let's see. Collective movements are really the norm. Nation, religion, economics. Okay. Audio issue. Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's just one of those things that it's a new podcast, and if I were to tell my husband that I'm taking 6 months off of work and then I'm going to spend a bunch of money on audiovisual equipment, I think he'd be like, "What?" So yeah, it's on the list. We're going to get better sound, but we are working on it. I'm glad that it's not too bad. I know the frustration because I've also, you know, I've been on the other side of it. It's kind of like, so thank you, Hugh. So Svetlana says it's true there was, okay, this is something that I don't know. Again, I want to be honest. My knowledge of Russian history, especially Soviet Union history, is thin. Yeah, so this is something that Andrew could probably have talked about, but the historical, the historical knowledge of the Soviet Union is, and also Russia probably until like the last 10 years or so. It's not my, I'm not well versed in it, so I'd have to let the chat decide this, or
Yeah.
talk. So I'm not.
Maybe she should come on. We'd like to hear her talk about it.
Holly, you
That'd
should
be
come on
interesting.
and talk about this, because this is true. A few weeks ago, I had someone come on and explain to me the Trots tanky battle, because I was like, why is this still going on? I've had people sometimes that I realized when they were asking me what kind of Marxist I was, what kind of socialist I was, they wanted to know if I was a Trot or a tanky. And I'm like, well, is there a third option? Because
Yeah, Maoist.
what's going on? Is this, yeah. And so I had a friend come on, say, can you explain this to me? Can you explain why 20-year-olds are calling each other Trots and tankies online? And explain it to me like I'm 10. And Garrett did. Garrett did come on and do a really good job. I mean, I couldn't say if he was lying or not, because I don't know, but it made sense to me.
I don't think he was lying, Tara. Didn't sound like he was lying.
No, I'm not saying that I think he was. I'm just wanting to be honest with the fact that if somebody's telling me something and I don't know enough to know if they're telling me the truth or not. Now, if something logically seemed crazy, I mean, yeah, then I'd be like, what? You know?
As if he's describing Scientology to you, and then there's the Thetans, and they came down.
Like, what? Xanu? Like, what? No, so that. Anyway, but yeah, so a lot of you come on and tell us more about this. I am really interested, but it's also the fact that I don't read Russian, and I think maybe it's gotten better now. But I don't think it'd surprise you to find out that the presentation of Soviet Union that we got in the States was fairly narrow.
Right? It was like Rambo, right? Or the Rocky, rather. With the.
I mean, in terms of Stalin, bad, yeah. Stalin, Mao, bad. So it's all like Gulag, Cultural Revolution method.
Yeah.
Tyrant. I mean, there was no, and I'm saying, I'm assuming in school, and again, I didn't, this is not my expertise. So on the theoretical stuff, philosophical stuff, more on the political history of the States, and India, okay, I'm better at that. But the Soviet Union, and also when it comes to China, I read some stuff. I lived in China for a year, way back when, 2002, 2001, right after university. And so I've read some stuff about Mao and Xi, but again, stuff that's available in English and in the press. So the stuff the stuff that would, so it's also a limitation. So I just want to be honest about the fact about things that I'm not that knowledgeable of. Let's see. Hi. Oh, hi everyone. Zuleika's here. Hey, Zuleika. Zuleika probably knows a bit. Zuleika probably knows a bit about Soviet Union history. Okay. Yeah, there's always been a fringe of Russian nationalism from Stalin years ago. Nothing new. Lenin called it Russian national chauvinist. Like that. And this is stuff that's not for me. I'm interested in it. I just don't know enough to.
Yeah.
Where am I at? Okay. Maggie, can you read some of these? Because I'm starting. I need to get. Would you read?
Sure. Slava says, MAGA communism is not about Trump, but the crowd that supports him, explaining Marxism in a way that Trump's base would understand. Grassy knoll.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And there's the people who think it's a fool's errand, like Daniel Tutt, or seem to claim to. I can't remember. I only watched the first part. I watched the first hour of their conversation, just long enough to be like, I was really amazed at how, for lack of a better word, how Haas disarmed him. I think he was expecting.
Yeah, I want to see it now. Yeah, I want to see it.
Very different. He was expecting a different situation.
Huh.
So anyway, and who is on the left of what? Is that me or is who's on the left?
You're the left. That's Tara.
I thought on the left, and like my microphone is sounding bad. I've heard this. I don't know. I've checked everything I can check, so I'm just trying to speak right into it and hope for the best. Okay. Okay. Sure. Yes. This is interesting. I'm just going to put it up here because people typed it, but I don't know. They're talking back.
Code mop. That is interesting.
We're just like voyeurs now. Then.
Yeah. Although Stalin, that's that's a fragment.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Zuleika's in here. Go ahead. I forget that I'm not.
We know it has a home in the trade union bureaucracy because of how they keep abandoning various workers, particularly women in the trade union movement. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of women have been. They became known quite quickly that this was something you should not complain about, and if you did, you were likely not to have the union support, which is really outrageous. But
Yeah, no.
and maybe I was naive, but it kept on happening. Okay, so this is more.
Shall I read it? Although Stalin's notable work is on the national question, him and deviated from each other a bit on that topic. Don't quite understand. Him and who?
But Kobe and Svetlana are talking to each other. So
right.
Okay, Rossi, no.
I think Hinkle does support Trump because of Trump's foreign policy. Well,
he does. He support. And again, I think it's relative. So if you compare what Biden is saying, the Biden administration, to what Trump was doing in his administration, what he says now, he would say, yeah, because he thinks that Trump is interested in ending the war with Ukraine, whereas listen about what he says. He could change his mind. And again, president. If we think the president's all powerful, you got to disabuse yourself of that right away. Yeah. I think with Trump, I highlight that quickly. Even though apparently Biden's been checked out for years and things have been going, I don't say they've been working well, but things run on. So I would say that relatively speaking, yeah, but when it comes to his foreign policy, when it comes to China, when it comes to Iran, when it comes to Israel, Palestine, he's not on Trump's. I'd be surprised if he would be, because he's very much critical of Zionism, so it's hard to be on front with Trump, who seems to be fine with it. But then again, who knows? It's hard to know.
It's hard to know.
I mean, also his daughter is converted to Judaism, and Jared Kushner is like friends with Bibi Netanyahu's family, and
yeah.
So there's family stuff there too. So
yeah.
Not that it's an excuse, but
MAGA communists are focused on the working class, mainly blue-collar workers within the MAGA base. They just see Trump as a mascot, but not one to take seriously.
Yeah, and it's also my understanding from what I've seen is that they're like, look, their grievances, the feeling that something's wrong, the corruption, the rigged, they're not wrong about that. So yeah, this idea that that want to take the potentiality there and not have it just die off when Trump passes away or after his second what do you call it term. Yeah, and so maybe now I don't know about J.D. Vance. That's another story because he's a populist, but is he really? And his whole hillbilly elegy was all basically about. If people are familiar with the culture of poverty thesis that somebody wrote in reference to like inner cities to black American to communities that are primarily African American in the States, it's called the culture of poverty. Hillbilly elegy is that version, but for Appalachia for white people. So there's no political economic analysis that we would recognize in that. However, J.D. Vance is, at least outwardly, he's critical of big money and politics, even though he comes from the hedge fund thing, Peter Thiel. But about campaign finance reform, about the party not being so beholden to lobbyists, whether or not, again, it's also not so much what he means it or not, but if people can hold him to account and what they're able to actually do when they get in power. You can't just do whatever you want. Or you can start to do something and then the pain starts to set in and then you go quickly reverse because you don't want the voters to take it out on you or the donors to take it out on you. If you make them unhappy with trade decisions vis-a-vis China, for example, that Trump had them going back and forth on because he didn't seem to want to be willing to take the pain from the transitional period. Okay. Let's see. Is this Zoom my fault? Sorry. Uh-oh. Um, about sorry, or is it, I'm trying to find. I don't know what's going on with my system here. First it was my microphone, and now it's like I'm trying to get the chat. Okay. Let's see. I'll just start. Okay. uh,
Bourgeois Democrats are praising LGBT. What is he talking about?
okay, now I think I found out where it was. There we go. I found out where it was. Sorry to like it, because all of a sudden I went to click on your comment, and my thing just started scrolling crazy. I was like,
Nurses having to go against NHS without support of their unions over their changing area being violated by a man who wanders around in his holy undies talking about how he's trying to have a baby. Infuriating. And there's a nurse in Canada who is being yeah, with his female partner. Great. Gets
yeah.
worse.
Yeah, fathering. There's nothing more female than fathering children. I think that we have.
Yeah, right.
I mean, come on.
Right?
Yeah.
Do the most male thing possible many times. Have fun doing it. And then, it was nothing. I was a woman the whole time. Only the part that Trump supposedly wants to stop funding of Ukraine, but Hinkle realizes that Trump is Zionist and has been openly talking about it, Grassy Knoll.
Yeah. Okay. So Kathleen Stock was first targeted Women in Academia Facebook group. Her union UCA looked the other way. Yeah. No, she was, that's her woman. I mean, and if you look at what's so crazy is how fanatical it was. If you look at what she actually said, quite wild.
Yeah, totally.
Quite wild. I mean, she's an analytical philosopher. You know, she's not me. So very reason, and it's either all or nothing. It's whether you submit and go along with this stuff, or you really have to face some sort of medieval witch hunt. It got so bad that she had to resign. I mean, there was posters about her, and there was super really because they were going to all stand up and rally behind, the LGBTQIA, and she's a lesbian, apparently a bad one. Because if you don't believe in trans lesbians, what kind of lesbian are you? Yeah. So she was, she. Although he seems to have bounced back pretty good. I mean, I don't know how. She if she really loved teaching, then it's probably a bummer. But if she liked more of the research and the writing and the talking, then yeah.
Didn't she get a knighthood or something? Order of the British Empire or something?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah, she did. She got one of them, CBE or OBE or
transphobia. I don't know. But anyway, no. But she writes articles now for a couple of publications, and she, I think she's somehow affiliated with that, or maybe I don't know if she isn't anymore. There was that thing that started with the anti-woke crowd, but the
University of Austin.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what that's. Maybe she just goes there every once in a while and gives a speech. I don't know. Yeah. So exactly. So Zlaika is Zlaika knows. Alexander made a
Pistrito. Hierarchical driving of culture war proves that economic base defining culture is real.
Yeah, I wouldn't dispute that. Okay, Grassy Knoll.
Okay, I thought Hinkle supported Trump, and I am glad that you cleared this up for me. Okay.
He doesn't negate, he doesn't trash Trump like the Democrats would do, because again, they're trying. If you're trying to reach MAGA people, then you're not going to get very far if all you do is trash their dude. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but it's not like he hasn't said stuff about. It's not like it's not known how he's not happy at all with, for example, Trump's position on Israel Palestine, for one example. Let's see. Greeting. Yes, greetings. Arnold. I mean, I'm so bad with my Americanness. I'm so bad at these names.
I can't even.
Anyway, hi, Arnold S. Welcome. Let's see. Yeah, greetings.
We got this one already. Bourgeois Democrats praising LGBT. What is he talking about?
I don't know who, but bourgeois Democrats love LGBTQ all day long. Gay. I mean, we have. Oh, this is a great thing. I didn't put it up. Let me put it up now. With our friend Kamala Harris.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. Kamala Harris wrote a letter to Dylan Mulvaney.
Why did you do that?
Congratulating him on his 365th day of living authentically, which is Dylan Mulvaney decided to lark being a young girl, or not young. Dylan Mulvaney's like a very gay man in late 20s, early 30s. And when he decided to talk about being maybe transitioning or being non-binary, his social media blew up, and he kept on with that. And he did get facial feminization surgery. He did get that. But Kamala Harris, who was a big fan, she will tell you that not all women, that some women have penises. She will tell you that. It's not only women who can get pregnant. She'll tell you that. No, TWAW all the way. And she wrote a letter to Dylan Mulvaney congratulating him on his 360th birthday of living authentically, which means pretending to be a teenage girl.
Yeah, gross. Stupid videos with tampons and
it's like a minstrel. It's like a minstrel version of a teenage girl. It's what a hyper gay guy thinks a teenage girl is like.
Yeah, so
and how is that authentic? It's not authentic to him, and it certainly isn't authentic to.
No, it's so stupid.
But she wrote him a letter. So yeah, they're the only, and that's why and it's also why they like to focus on how anti-gay. And again, I'm not in Russia, so I don't know. But also the thing about they're also hyping up the IDF. Yeah, look at the IDF has gay soldiers. And the IDF is trans inclusive. And the IDF. It's like, well, great. I don't think it matters who's dropping the bomb on you or sniping you or blowing your children. I don't think it matters. If they're gay.
No, it's the LGBT imperialism. I would have liked to maybe Alexander would be someone to ask about that too, because he must have a perspective on that too. There's
Well, I think it's just kind of greenwashing. You try to cover stuff up in the accoutrements of being environmentally sound. And you try to make and if you think about it, if you're going to make empire and capitalism and whatnot more inclusive, more progressive, and it's like, yeah. And if you can often you realize that capitalism and imperialism work fine, you can be racially cool, genderly cool, sexuality cool. That's actually good for it. I mean, you can't be class cool. I mean, obviously, that's why one of these is different than the others. You don't have to have racism or sexism or transgenderism or any of that stuff. You don't have to have that to have capitalism, but you do have to have class.
Yeah, that's right.
You do have to have the class structure, both internally and externally, in terms of imperialism. That you can have, but you don't. It doesn't have to be now. Who occupies the different rungs of the class structure? Yeah, that doesn't have to be a particular color or particular whatever. But you can utilize that. You can utilize ideas about various groups to rationalize to help rationalize their economic position vis-a-vis others. Yeah, I mean, they'll use it, but it doesn't have to be racial or ethnic or anything like that. And what we've learned, if nothing, we've learned that knowing somebody's sexuality tells us nothing about their politics. You can be gay and be a sociopathic motherfucker. Sorry for my language. You can be straight, fantastic. Lesbians can do terrible things. Right, straight women can do terrible things. Black women, white women, all kinds. It's like this in and of itself tells us nothing about someone's moral fiber or their politics or their class consciousness. Nothing.
Right.
Which doesn't mean that I'm not for discrimination. I mean, I'm fine with gay rights. I'm fine with I like civil rights. I like civil liberty. all for that.
Yeah.
But it's just saying that, that in of itself. So anything that the status quo can do to make it seem like it's hip and progressive and shifting with the times, it doesn't actually cost it anything in terms of political or economic power. Of course they're going to do. Why wouldn't they?
Hmm.
And it doesn't cost me anything to put a flag in my bio.
No.
And that's why a lot of these corporations, even though it does cause them, I'm sure they don't like a lot of the bureaucracy with the DIE stuff and the social responsibility score, whatever they're calling it. But it doesn't affect their profit margin, or it doesn't affect the class dynamics. So, yeah, but it makes it seem, they care about the environment, they care about LGBTQI plus 2 spirit, whatever it is. They care about Black lives. They care about immigrants. They care about all kinds of things. Which is then they may very well, but it's kind of a risk-free in terms of material, a risk-free enterprise that they're on. Whereas actually dealing with the material conditions and the class structures, that requires a lot more.
Right.
Say. So that was Kamala. Legal Marxist is a very good term. I agree. In the UK, it's a turf war to defend bureaucratic coalitions between academic feminists and flag-waving Stonewall allies. I cannot dispute that characterization. Term means CPGBML. Okay.
Communist Party Great Britain, Marxist language.
I'm like, is that what I mean? Because, yeah. That is what I meant to, I guess. She can translate my Americanness and my not knowing all the party names. Go ahead.
And UCU has only made a fool out of itself. They started supporting sex work and all other kinds of anti-worker nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gross.
Let me tell you, this sex work is work. I mean, and I always say the same thing to people. Now, you have people kind of what they call, and I think Judy Bindel talked about this, how people kind of like maybe like flip their toe in it, or they have an OnlyFans page, or maybe they like they're a call girl for a weekend or for I don't know.
Yeah.
And they like, well, sex work is work, so it should be regulated. Like, so now that'd be a fantastic thing. And my thing is always the same. It's like, why don't you go down to the street corner, give the first 4 people that come up, four guys that come up, you give them oral sex for 20 or 30 pounds a pop, and then you come back and report back to us whether or not you still think sex work is work.
Yeah.
For men and women. I'm like, please. And regulating it, it's been shown that that's not the end all be all. That actually regulate it, you still increase the unregulated part of it. And also you're giving credence to the exchange. But somehow it's okay or it's fine in society for people for a woman, and I'm going to say women because I'm aware there's some male sex workers, I'll just say sex workers with male prostitute, whatever, as well. But the fact that if somebody is sleeping with somebody they don't want to sleep with, that what I would say if I'm saying should I sleep should this person sleep with these 5 people they don't want to, they really don't want to. We said no. Well, what if they pay them? Well, then it's okay then. If they're paying them, it's okay. Okay. But there's also this thing about this kind of weird thing about how like sexual entitlement and with the incel stuff that somehow that it's unfair that there are certain groups of people who no one will sleep with or they can't get unless they pay. So what are those do? That there needs to be the service provider for people who can only have sex if they pay for it.
Yeah.
And I can understand that if you're 30 years old or something like that, and you've never had sex with somebody that's with a woman that's upsetting to you, but I'm not going to use that as a justification for. I think there's other things you can do besides calling for prostitution. We can work on it. Like work on,
No, women don't have to go into sex slavery and society, the fabric of society be torn because some poor people can't have sex. No, that's their problem.
Yeah.
Too bad for you.
Yeah.
Problem.
It's kind of like, so that argument is kind of difficult. But I'm not saying there's in gray area, because if you have a society, if you have look, if we're saying, okay, we're basically free, whatever, and people are adults, should we really be, what can we ban people from doing? Yeah. And so I'm not saying it's cut and dry for me. I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm not going to euphemize prostitution. Yeah. By calling it sex work or career or whatever it is. Now, could there be some high class call girls that really have a great situation going on and really love what they're doing? It's possible. But the vast majority of it, that's not what goes on. And if you think men treat women they're paying to have sex nice, you're out of your mind. That's a gateway to do that. Because can you imagine one paying for it? And she agreed. So, and I'm not saying that all of them are, criminally doing that stuff, but it's not, if you just think about it for a moment, you can realize that this is not quote unquote work.
No, you can't treat humans like commodities. That's not left. It's not even decent to treat, it's slavery. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to, we have so many, oh my God. Okay. Yeah. I'm getting a bit tired.
Gone to the store. Yeah. Getting tired.
And it's late at night where you are.
Yeah, what time is it? Oh my God, 11:30. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So normally I would stay on and put up all the most of the comments, but we've been going on 3 hours. I need to let Tanya go, and my school's out for summer where I'm at, and I have to go check on my 3 crazy kids. See what they're doing. They're probably eating all the food, I guess. Probably not a snack left in the house. Because I started here when it was at noon, so it was lunchtime, and so if there's nobody in the kitchen, they get hungry. You can imagine.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I should have just had cookies and this and that for sorry." Anyway, thank you very. This was fun, Tanya.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a real experience for me. I really enjoyed it.
And so now that you realize that it's just a conversation, hopefully you'll be back to say on again.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Alexandra Mckay for coming on again, and for the people who checked this out for the first time who came over for him. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask you to, if you've gotten anything from this, to please like and subscribe. We're on X, Rumble, and YouTube. I also have a Substack, and I'm trying to put more articles out on there, usually about once a week. And you can subscribe for free. Of course, if you want to be a paid subscriber, that's great, because as people have probably can tell, the equipment is not very good. And I would like to continue. I do want to develop Morbid Symptoms Media with more contributors coming on, and both with podcasts and with articles. And of course, at some point that means I'm going to have to develop some Patreons, and people are going to have to buy me some copies and whatnot, because I can only stay out of the job market for so long to see if this works or if it's just going to be a part-time thing. But I like to do it full-time, because I like the freedom of being able to talk with people I want to talk to about things I want to talk about, and not being worried about, being scolded or canceled or witch hunted or whatever about that. I think that any of us who come on and to quote Eminem, if I think that shit, I'm going to say that shit. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. Come and disagree with me. That's, I'm to quote Cornel West, I'm a cracked vessel just like everybody else.
Oh, that's lovely. I love that.
He does have some nice things. So
I like it.
So I'm not lying. I'm not a liar, but then something I can't be wrong. I can be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
or I can be transferring things from one area to another that don't really fit. But I'm not a liar. So
No.
I'm not that I never lied, but I'm not coming on here to lie. I mean, I've never told a lie. Like, no, I've occasionally I've said I had a headache. I said you look good in that. Yeah. I've lied before. But I don't do podcasts or write articles to lie. So those of you who
Oh.
are not, you can't know. You can't know. We can have some reflection, have some idea about what we don't know. So there's things I know that I don't know. There's always going to be things I don't know, but I don't know that I don't know them. Which is why I love like having other people who come on and can help fill the blanks. So again, anybody who has a night, it's called the Morbid Symptoms Podcast because we're awash in morbid symptoms, and it's directly from the Gramsci quote that the old is dying and the new cannot be born. Now is a time of morbid symptoms, and they're all around us. That's why I call the podcast that. So if anybody wants to talk about this with you more, or there's something else that falls under that, I'm more than happy to talk about it. We'll have you on. If you want to find if there's somebody you can suggest to have us on, and I will talk to almost anybody.
Yeah.
And I can't think of. There are a few people. I'm not going to talk to Bibi Netanyahu. I'm not going to talk to Crazy Viral. Sorry, because it's just I've been doing that since October 7th, and what's the point? So I just whatever. I'm rambling now, so it's time to go. Tanya, thank you.
Thank you
for tuning in. I'm sorry I didn't include all your comments. I will look through them later on, and if anybody asks me something specifically, or Tanya specifically, in the comments, I will figure out a way to I'll see what I can do about that. Okay, so before you go though, if you could just talk to me for just 1 minute more, because this is what happens when I'm all alone and I'm not ready to leave yet. And then or I say goodbye and I realize that I haven't done the end credit ready, and there's this weird like dead air. So
yeah, let's just talk for a bit.
Yeah, just let me get
what time is it there? Let's check.
It's 3:30 almost.
Oh, so afternoon. It's time for you to have a snack. I always feel a little bit hungry around then.
Well, obviously I could lose some weight, but I'm a bit peckish because I didn't have any. I think I had coffee for breakfast. Anyway, okay, so this is good. All right, I'm just gonna start the music.
I love this photo of Svetlana.
The music. All right, everybody. So please do like and subscribe. Tanya, thank you very much. I knew you'd be fantastic at this. I've heard that my microphone was doing weird things. I'm sorry about that. I'll see if there's something I can do. But like I said, I just plug it in, and that's it. There's no bomb or anything on it. And we'll see you all next time. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, Tanya. Thank you. And
bye. Thank you.
With a 5-minute preview promo video on how the left was trans, you can check out and enjoy at the end. Bye.
Bye.